One moment, I was dying in a car crash. The next, I woke up as the despised, illegitimate son of a king, cast away to the most barren wasteland in the empire. They thought they were banishing me to my death, but they had no idea. With this system, I'm not just going to survive. I'm going to drag this world kicking and screaming into the modern age. After a fatal car accident on Earth, the brilliant 26-year-old mechanical engineer Chu Yi awakens in a different world as Landon Barn, a 15-year-old exiled prince. He is immediately greeted by his devoted, worn-out mother, Kim Ably, and his loyal, beautiful maid, Lucy, both fearing he is near death. As the fog of the transition clears, the memories of the original Landon Barn flood his mind. An illegitimate child of the king, constantly bullied and finally exiled to the barren fief of Baymard to ensure his slow demise. Just as despair threatens to take hold, a mechanical voice resonates in his mind. The technological system has bound itself to his high IQ consciousness, offering him a path to rebuild his life and his new, neglected territory. The system confirms his potential and instantly purges the lethal Nalat wisp poison from his veins. Landon's weak body surges with newfound vigor. The days of being a fragile pawn are over. With a mission to transform the wasteland of Baymard into a powerhouse, Landon steps out to greet his loyal, if downtrodden, subordinates. They are few and they are outcasts, but they are all he has. Despite his royal status, his mother and Lucy treat him with overwhelming, motherly care, trying to feed him far more than he could ever consume. It is a strange, heartwarming contrast to the cold cruelty of the capital. He realizes these 300 knights were discarded by the Empire, viewed as incompetent. Landon sees not trash, but raw potential waiting to be forged into an elite force. They reach the borders of Baymard. The walls are formidable, 16 meters high and imposing. The city is massive, though rumors have branded it a barren, death-ridden trap. The new Lord of Baymard takes charge immediately. He addresses the castle staff, setting a new tone of fairness and compassion, offering them salaries that far exceed what they were used to under the previous rule. He turns to his knights, promising them a future where they are not just soldiers, but brothers. He implements a radical pay scale, shocking them and sealing their absolute devotion to his cause. The next morning, the real training begins. Landon introduces rigorous, systematic military routines from Earth, demanding absolute discipline. The days of sluggish, unorganized training are officially over. He watches his mother and Lucy serve the men. Despite the grueling labor, the morale in the kingdom is climbing. Everyone feels the shift from a place of hopelessness to a place of purpose. Landon begins his inspection. He uses the system to map the territory, discovering that beneath the poverty and neglect, there is immense potential to be tapped if he can just organize the resources. They stumble upon hidden mines, deposits of trona, feldspar, and saltpeter. While the Empire sees them as useless stones, Landon recognizes them as the building blocks for glass, detergents, and gunpowder. Deep in the forest, they find a young boy, Momo, fighting a wild boar to feed his sick sister. Touched by his plight, Landon instantly takes the child and his sister, Grace, into his own household. He meets Grace, a beautiful but sickly girl struggling to survive. Landon promises them a home in the palace, securing 2 more loyal souls to his growing family. The discipline intensifies. Landon demands total obedience and team cohesion. The men are pushed to their physical limits, transforming from a ragtag group into a cohesive fighting unit. Landon turns his attention to the land. With a bit of organic science and manure, he proves the soil isn't cursed, it's just starved. He teaches the farmers how to nourish the earth, bringing life back to the fields. Far away, his brother, Prince Illy, celebrates what he believes is Landon's inevitable demise from the poison. Little does he know, Landon is not only alive but thriving. Landon moves to educate his populace. He orders the creation of thousands of slate boards and massive chalkboards, laying the foundation for a school system to banish illiteracy in Baymard. The experiments are a resounding success. The barren fields are now overflowing with wheat, beans, and vegetables. Baymard's food crisis is solved, and the people look toward Landon as their savior. He receives his rewards: cement manufacturing, gourmet cooking, and gunpowder secrets. The system forces him to think about cooking as technology, nudging him toward creating modern kitchen appliances. The military exam begins. Landon has taught his knights the art of stealth and camouflage, moving away from the Empire's prideful, loud fighting style to something more lethal. Billy Vane, once a shy and fearful boy, displays incredible growth. His movements are sharp and precise, proving Landon's training has unlocked the hidden warrior within him. The exam concludes. They have fought, captured, and strategized, discovering a deep bond of brotherhood. They are no longer just individuals, they are a unified, unstoppable force. With food, discipline, and a burgeoning educational system, Baymard is changing. Landon knows the Empire will eventually notice, but when they do, he will be ready to protect his home at any cost. The mock exams continue as Landon Barn observes his men struggling through the harsh terrain. He understands that while speed is important, the core objective of this training is to build unbreakable teamwork and resolve. Joseph Figg realizes the true weight of leadership. As a lead climber, he must guide his teammates through the treacherous cliffside, teaching them that survival and trust are the ultimate tests of a true soldier. The final day of exams arrives. Landon Barn tests his knights' mettle through grueling sword combat while they carry heavy sandbags, pushing their bodies to the absolute limit of endurance. The veteran commander Lucius fights with the poise of a master. Even under the burden of heavy weights, his breathing is rhythmic and controlled, setting the standard for the young knights. The mock exams yield to the industrial progress of Baymard. Landon Barn secures his partnership with Tim Mayers, turning his vision of a literate and technically advanced kingdom into reality. A new variable enters the equation. A merchant ship approaches the coast, carrying Benjamin Hamilton, a man who will soon become an unlikely, jovial bridge to the outside world. The merchant Benjamin Hamilton, nicknamed Santa by Landon Barn, brings both chaos and opportunity. Their unexpected rapport promises a prosperous future for the trade of rare minerals. Observing the thriving crops and the genuine devotion of the villagers, Benjamin Hamilton realizes that Landon Barn is far more than a simple nobleman. He is a leader of men. With the trade agreement signed, Landon Barn turns his attention to his military, elevating those who proved their loyalty and skill during the long days of the mock exams. Industrialization begins in earnest. Landon Barn directs the construction of facilities dedicated to glass, iron, and the most dangerous weapon of all, the cannon. The schooling system is inaugurated. Landon Barn promises his people that ignorance will no longer hold them back, as he pledges to build a kingdom where every citizen can thrive. Late into the night, Landon Barn utilizes his remaining time to document the knowledge of his past life, writing textbooks on chemistry, mathematics, and law to educate his future leaders. While progress blooms in Baymard, darkness gathers in Riverdale City. The tyrant Shannon Lerp plots, seeking to eliminate Landon Barn and seize the secrets of the land for himself. Far away, the royal family is rotting from within. Princely Barn maneuvers through a web of betrayal, oblivious to the fact that his discarded brother is building a power base that could shatter the empire. Billy Barn maintains his network of spies, but even he underestimates the threat of the ghostly prince. The throne is a blood-soaked seat, and he is determined to claim it at any cost. The day of the test has arrived. The roar of the cannon shatters the silence of the forest. Landon Barn watches with grim satisfaction as the weapon demonstrates its overwhelming destructive power. For Lucius, the cannon is not just a tool. It is a symbol of a safer future. A future where no more good soldiers need to die on the battlefield. After the tension of the test, Landon Barn steals a moment of peace. He has a plan, not for war, but for the rest of his life. Even the stoic Lucius finds his heart racing, as he finally embraces the feelings he has held for Kim Ably throughout their long journey. In a moment that breaks the norms of their era, Landon Barn kneels before Lucy, pledging his love and future to her in the presence of his people. The day ends, but the mission remains. Landon Barn accepts the system's challenges, knowing that cement, guns, and infrastructure are the foundation of the empire he will create. With newfound technical knowledge from the system, Landon Barn visualizes a city of concrete, iron, and progress, planning every district for the influx of new citizens. Efficiency is the key. Under the direction of Landon Barn, the construction industry shifts from crude labor to precision manufacturing, preparing for the massive building projects of the coming months. Landon Barn shows the newcomers the power of simple innovation. By teaching them to farm efficiently, he turns former refugees into productive, proud citizens of Baymard. Displaced by the Queen's cruelty, Barry MacLean arrives in Baymard. He seeks not a throne, but the chance to serve a king who values honor over mindless power. Speaking to thousands of refugees, Landon Barn rejects the label of slavery. He offers a new social contract: protection, education, and dignity for all who call this land their home. Amidst the grand plans, life has a way of being unpredictable. Three spirited, aging men demand labor, testing Landon Barn's patience with their comedic claims of superhuman strength. With thousands of new citizens and an ironclad vision, Landon Barn stands at the precipice of a new era. The shadows of the empire may gather, but in Baymard, the light of progress burns brighter than ever. The ambition of a king is measured by his resolve. Landon Barn, once a man from Earth, now the ruler of Baymard, works tirelessly to lay the foundation for a new era. His primary concern is the refining of crude oil, the lifeblood of the modern industrial world. With the power of the system at his command, Landon manipulates the very earth, redirecting underground oil reservoirs to create accessible seeps. He refuses to wait for tools he does not yet possess, forcing his people to innovate with the resources at hand. Gravity and ingenuity converge as the crude oil begins its journey. Chief Wiggins, a man obsessed with the mysteries of alchemy and chemistry, watches with childlike wonder as the first drops of refined products begin to manifest. The process is delicate, relying on temperature gradients to separate precious fuels from the crude mess. Each drop represents a step closer to the synthetic rubber and fuel needed to propel Baymard into the future. While progress takes root in Baymard, darkness gathers in the distance. In the shadows of Riverdale, enemies plot, unaware that the game they have started is already slipping from their control. Order is the backbone of any great army. Landon implements a rigorous military hierarchy, modeled after the structures of his past life, ensuring every soldier understands their place and their potential for advancement. The knights of old become the soldiers of the new order. Under the command of Lucius, these men and women are forged into a unified force, shedding their former titles for the discipline of the Baymard army. Amidst the gears and the drills, Landon never forgets the future of Baymard. He speaks to the children, teaching them values beyond simple strength, hoping to break the cycle of cruelty that defines this era. Even in the shadow of industrial expansion, human connections remain sacred. Landon's respect for the elderly and his genuine kindness earn him the loyalty of those who truly understand the depth of his character. Far away in the Yawden Empire, the wrath of the Queen is a storm that destroys everything in its path. Her obsession with power and control knows no bounds, and she demands vengeance for the perceived slights against her authority. Back in Baymard, the drive for progress continues. Landon introduces the two-man saw, transforming how wood is harvested and shaped. Every plank and board is a piece of the city he is constructing from nothing. The roar of the trencher echoes the strength of Baymard's ambition. It is more than a machine. It is a symbol of their defiance against the archaic constraints of this world. Peace is a fragile luxury for a man who challenges the status quo. In the dead of night, the system's warning rips Landon from his rest. An intruder, carrying the stench of death, is closing in on the gates. Dumbo, the assassin, finds his stealth matched by the unseen defenses of the city. He never expected the banished prince to have such potent, invisible guardians waiting in the darkness. The environment itself turns against the intruder. Bound by nature and trapped by his own arrogance, the assassin discovers that death in Baymard can take many forms, some far more unsettling than a simple blade. Landon's justice is as unconventional as his technology. In the belly of his dungeon, the assassin faces a fate far worse than the blade: the tickle torture, an ancient, maddening trial that leaves him gasping and pleading for mercy. There is no forgiveness for those who threaten his home. With a swift, precise movement, Landon ends the assassin's mission and his life, demonstrating that his mercy is strictly reserved for those who offer loyalty. Safety is the bedrock of industrial power. Landon shifts his focus to synthetic rubber, envisioning a future where every worker is protected by gloves, boots, and gear, sparing them from the harsh realities of manual labor. Meanwhile, the Game of Thrones continues in the shadows. Carrie Barn, driven by familial duty and a thirst for power, readies her own blades, prepared to play the villain to outsmart her treacherous half-siblings. She is a woman who thrives in the dark, carving her path through the opposition with a cruelty that matches her intellect. To her, every death is a necessary step toward the throne she covets. With the most legendary assassin in the Empire now in her service, Carrie's plans enter a new, deadlier phase. The thrill of the hunt begins, and she is eager to watch the Empire burn for her own gain. Innovation extends to the very food they eat. Landon introduces the art of seasoning, determined to replace the bland, uninspired meals of this era with the flavors he remembers from home. The machines are tools of freedom, but they require a master's touch. Landon personally leads the driving classes, ensuring his people aren't just laborers, but operators who command the metal beasts they build. In the hidden corners of the Empire, William Barnston prepares for his own ascent. Bound by his father's vow to wear a mask, he hides his regal features while plotting to reclaim the destiny stolen from his family. The alchemy department blooms, turning out plastic and ink where once there was only raw struggle. Every trial and error has sharpened their minds, bringing the workers closer to Landon's level of precision. War arrives on the horizon, carried by an arrogant messenger who underestimates the banished prince. The challenge is clear: surrender Baymard and its people, or face the total annihilation of all they have built. Landon's response is a resounding declaration of war. He gathers his men, promising them not just victory, but a future protected by the might of his new army. For Baymard, they stand ready. City Lord Shannon leads a vast legion of knights, certain of their superiority. They march toward what they believe is an easy conquest, blind to the terrible technological death awaiting them. The sky erupts in fire and thunder. The cannons shatter the silence of the battlefield, tearing through the enemy ranks with a force that defies all understanding. The Age of Knights faces the era of industry. The battle is won, but the cost is etched into the blood-stained earth. Landon realizes that his path forward is not just one of invention, but of sacrifice. The fields are red, and Baymard has survived its first true test. 3 days had passed since the clash at Baymard. The soldiers, now hardened by the reality of war, turned their focus toward discipline and survival, meticulously clearing the debris of conflict from their lands. Fearing local superstitions about cursed ground, Landon ordered the remnants of the fallen enemy to be incinerated. The soldiers worked with grim, hushed efficiency, desperate to cleanse their home of the haunting specter of their foes. The men acted with a bizarre, almost comical sense of covert importance, treating the disposal of enemy ashes like a top-secret intelligence operation. Landon found himself struggling to comprehend their bizarre obsession with the ancestors. With the physical evidence gone, Landon turned to science. Luminol, a tool from his past life, proved effective in erasing the grim stains of war, restoring the field's natural, peaceful green shade. The war had left behind thousands of horses, turning Baymard into a hub of animal management. Landon realized his current staff was dangerously overwhelmed, necessitating a massive expansion of his workforce. Cleanup complete, Landon turned his attention to a promise long delayed. Outside the lecture hall, he waited with stolen flowers, determined to make up for the date that the war had cruelly stolen from them. Seeing her surprise was worth the risk of facing the wrath of the garden keepers. For a brief moment, the heavy responsibilities of a leader faded, replaced by the simple, quiet beauty of a developing love. The semester had drawn to a close, and the air in Baymard was thick with the intensity of examinations. Notebooks replaced slate boards, signaling a new era of education where young minds were sharpened like never before. For the young princess, this was more than just a test. It was a sanctuary. Far from the neglect of her past, she thrived under the guidance of mentors who actually cared, pouring her heart into every equation. Across the continent in Corona, the atmosphere was drastically different. Banners fluttered, and the masses gathered beneath the palace, their hearts racing with the question of who would sit upon the throne. King Carmelo and his family stood before their people, a rare display of unity that masked the underlying tension of the succession. The royal announcer raised his megaphone, ready to deliver a decree that would alter history. The announcer paused, his face pale as he read the contents of the scroll. The crowd groaned in collective anxiety, waiting for the words that would decide the fate of their empire. The decree was absolute. The king would step down. In a twist no one dared to predict, the throne was not destined for a prince, but for the brave and brilliant Princess Penelope. Though she was a woman, her talent for the blade was undeniable. For years, she had watched, learned, and refined her skills in the shadows, waiting for the moment she could truly serve her people. The citizens cheered, their voices echoing off the palace walls. She was their savior, their knight, and now their queen. The path forward was clear, and her resolve was as unbreakable as her sword. Back in Baymard, life moved forward. A new shipment of livestock signaled the expansion of industry, with cows, sheep, and goats arriving to fill the lands, each one a step toward self-sufficiency. But every blessing came with a curse. The arrival of the Fantastic Seven, a group of eccentric elders, threatened to turn the palace into a chaotic stage, their loud bickering putting Landon's patience to the ultimate test. With labor forces reorganized and construction sites cleared, the real work began. Landon envisioned a future where modern hygiene and infrastructure would lift his people out of the dark ages. Water and sewage treatment plants were the new priority. Landon's vision was precise. Filtration, disinfection, and proper engineering would protect Baymard from the diseases that plagued the rest of the continent. Discipline was the heartbeat of Baymard. Even at lunch, there was order. Workers ate in designated areas, fueling up for the physically demanding construction ahead, their eyes fixed on a future Landon was carving out. In the capital, the shadows shifted. William, known as the Ghostly Prince, prepared for his next move. The political chessboard was moving, and he had no intention of playing by anyone else's rules. Sibling rivalry reached a fever pitch in the garden. Jeanette, a master of the White Lotus Act, weaponized her tears to manipulate the court, while Carrie struggled to keep her rage in check, knowing the political stakes involved. The military routine was relentless. At 6:00 a.m., the whistle shrieked and recruits scrambled from their straw beds. Discipline was not a choice. It was the only way to survive in Landon's new army. Private Kirsten pushed through the exhaustion of the obstacle course. Every fall was a lesson, every mistake a punishment. He had found his dignity here, and he would not let it slip away, no matter the pain. In the weekly industrial meeting, progress was the only language spoken. The alchemy department had mastered their soap formulation, and the food industry had created butter so rich it felt like magic to their unaccustomed tongues. Desperation drove Slytherin Cord into the fog of the cemetery. He sought his white rabbit, the ghostly prince, unaware that he was walking straight into a meticulously crafted trap. Steel clashed in the gloom. Slytherin found his arrogance shattered by the ghostly prince's precision. For the first time, he realized that he wasn't the hunter, he was the prey. Slytherin escaped, but the price was his pride. He returned to his base to find it smoldering, a final, chilling message left by the ghostly prince that turned his fury into a cold, festering hatred. Disease, too, had invaded Baymard, but Landon met it with the cold clarity of science. Chickenpox would not break his people, not as long as there were hands to care, knowledge to guide, and the will to survive. In the wake of the chickenpox crisis, the hospital in Baymard thrives under the guidance of Dr. Jerson. Transmigrated to this era, the visionary King Landon has revolutionized healthcare, replacing healers with doctors and helpers with nurses, all while enforcing strict hygiene standards to protect his people. Innovation is the cornerstone of progress. Landon's new archival system turns chaotic records into a precise science, ensuring that every citizen's health history is tracked, cataloged, and stored, preparing the city for a future where information is power. For those once broken, there is a second chance at life. Through Landon's invention of the medical walker and the implementation of physical therapy, seniors like Grandma Patricia are reclaiming their mobility and spirit. proving that care and movement are the best medicine. The tide of public opinion shifts as the community witnesses the miracle of modern medicine. Families no longer view sickness with fear and superstition, but with trust, offering heartfelt thanks to the hospital staff who have become the heroes of Baymard. Education is the bedrock of Landon's ambitious empire. As summer wanes, the king meticulously organizes the academic semester, ensuring his people are equipped with chemistry, mathematics, and logic, moving steadily away from the Dark Ages. In the heart of the alchemy industry, the quest for knowledge continues. Through controlled experimentation, the teachers grasp the principles of reversible chemical reactions, fueling their desire to unlock the secrets of the natural world under Landon's watchful eyes. While Baymard builds, shadows stir in the distance. Queen Ivy remains relentless, her spies creeping across the empire in search of those who dared to defy her. The hunt for the survivors continues, oblivious to the rising power of the King of Baymard. Expansion is relentless. As new workers arrive, Landon orchestrates the distribution of labor with the precision of a clockmaker. Industry and infrastructure are the engines of progress, and every hand is needed to forge the future of the Baymard kingdom. Innovation knows no bounds. From the development of toilet paper and porcelain fixtures to the conceptualization of the fluorescent light bulb, Landon pushes his engineers to turn his memories of Earth into tangible reality, transforming the mundane into the extraordinary. Winter approaches, threatening to wither the source of life. To safeguard the medicinal herbs vital to his hospitals, Landon commissions a massive, state-of-the-art greenhouse, a glass fortress designed to defy the seasons and ensure a steady supply of medicine for all. City planning is the architect's dream. Landon sketches the destiny of Baymard, dividing districts with geometric precision. From the royal palace to the bustling ports, every road and building is calculated to promote efficiency, safety, and growth in a world that has yet to know such order. Construction never rests. As the laborers mark out streets and highways, Landon transforms the flat, grassy plains into a structured network of roads. This is the foundation upon which electricity, water, and sewage systems will eventually feed the growing pulse of the city. Science is a beacon of light. By transferring the knowledge of lighting technology to his engineers, Landon prepares the city for a future where the night will no longer be an enemy. Every light bulb produced is a step away from the shadows of history. A king must also be a commander. The first official military examinations begin, putting the recruits through grueling tests of physical combat, strategy, and firearm handling. Only the strongest and most disciplined will rise to earn a place in Baymard's defense force. In the crucible of combat, true character is revealed. Landon watches closely, not just for the strength of their strikes, but for the safety and control with which they fight. The military of Baymard will not be built on brutality, but on calculated precision. Beneath the surface, the lifeblood of the city takes root. Pipes for water, sewage, and heating are threaded beneath the ground, connected with rigorous planning. Each trench dug is a promise of health and convenience for the citizens who will soon call these homes. Political storms gather beyond the borders. While Baymard thrives, the capital is plagued by the mysterious disappearance of the notorious city lord Shannon. King Barn's paranoia deepens as old alliances crumble and the specter of rebellion looms in the corridors of power. Culinary arts reach new heights. Landon introduces the Master Chef competition, a celebration of flavor and creativity. It is more than just a game. It is an incentive for his people to innovate and excel, rewarded by prestige and gold. A king's palate is as sharp as his mind. As the competition unfolds, Landon judges not just the taste, but the ambition behind each dish. Critics and cheers echo through the arena, highlighting the birth of a culinary culture in the heart of Baymard. The journey of an artisan is paved with critiques and small victories. Though Milton faces harsh words from the judges, he leaves the stage with his head held high, armed with the determination to become the best chef his kingdom has ever known. In the shadows of the capital, the son of the missing lord plots. Martyr Shannon feels the walls closing in, his distrust of the king growing with every passing day. He prepares for a journey that may very well determine the fate of his lineage. The echoes of the new age ripple far beyond Baymard. In Yadin, the daughters of the king demand their place in history, inspired by the rumors of a female ruler in Corona. Yet they find only the harsh rejection of a king who values talent over titles. Success tastes sweeter when it is earned. Mustafa and his comrades find their names on the list of those who passed the midterm, their bond growing stronger with each challenge. They have weathered the storm and emerged as soldiers of a new era. The wheels of industry begin to turn. The completion of the power plant signals a new dawn for Baymard. Workers stand in awe of the massive glass structures, feeling the weight and importance of the mission Landon has entrusted to them. Knowledge must be spread. Landon initiates the age of mass printing, recognizing that the ability to document laws, history, and education is vital to keeping his civilization afloat. The rotary presses are the pulse of a society awakening to a new reality. The textile industry flourishes. Under Sophia's watch, the spinning wheels hum, transforming raw animal fur into soft, durable threads. This is the beginning of a supply chain that will clothe the people and protect them from the coming winter chill. The dream of housing becomes reality. Landon mobilizes his massive workforce to construct residential homes in the central district. Each group is a gear and a machine, working in harmony to provide safety and warmth for every original citizen of Baymard. The medical and healthcare academy grows. By training the next generation of caregivers, Landon ensures that the city's health is sustained by those who learn both the science of chemistry and the compassion of human care, creating a legacy of wellness. Every diagnosis is a lesson, every patient a chapter in the history of Baymard's medical progress. Through intensive practice and rigorous study, the students transform from volunteers into pillars of society, ensuring that the health of the kingdom is never left to chance. A newfound purpose burns bright in the hearts of the students. They have found more than just a job, they have found a mission. As the day ends, they walk out with the knowledge that they are contributing to the longevity and strength of their nation. As the sun sets on a productive September, Landon looks out upon the fruits of his relentless labor. The city is growing, the people are thriving, and the future is finally within reach. The path is long, but for the King of Baymard, the journey has only just begun. In the heart of Baymard, Landon Barn labored alongside his officials, meticulously crafting a legal framework inspired by the efficiency of his past life. They categorized every sector from agriculture to finance, aiming to build a society governed by clear, unwavering rules. He prioritized public health, enforcing strict expiration labels and safety regulations for every commodity. It was a monumental task, but for a king who had transmigrated from a modern world, setting this foundation was essential for his people's future. The officials were struck by the unprecedented benevolence of the benefit sector, which promised security for the elderly and disabled. They felt a profound sense of pride serving under a leader who cared for the most vulnerable citizens. Landon tightened the rules for visitors and international students. He was willing to share basic knowledge, but strictly guarded the industrial secrets of Baymard, keeping potential enemies at bay by limiting their stay and access. Seeking to gauge the shifting tides of the continent, Landon arrived at the Tenal auction house. Cloaked in a system-provided disguise, he observed the elite of Arcadina as they gathered, unaware that the creator of Baymard was in their midst. Jeanette Barn, fueled by jealousy and the desire to seize her father's throne, moved through the auction house. She believed she had outplayed her rivals, oblivious to the hidden dangers she would soon face. The tension between Jeanette and her nemesis, Angelina, reached a boiling point. They exchanged biting insults, their rivalry a performance for the elite onlookers, while Landon watched with detached amusement. The final item, the legendary snow powder, stunned the audience with a demonstration of its explosive power. While others were blinded by its potential for destruction, Landon recognized it merely as a primitive, impure form of gunpowder. Even King Barn was present, desperate to procure the substance to secure his throne against his enemies. He was willing to spend any fortune, unaware that his obsession was shared by many others in the room. When the bidding began, Landon purposefully drove up the price, delighting in making life difficult for the nobles who had once bullied him. Minister Frederick and his son watched as their wealth was challenged by a nameless stranger. Back in Baymard, Chief Sophia conducted her weekly inspection of the textile industry. With the new steam-powered machinery in place, the production efficiency had soared, a far cry from the grueling manual labor of the past. Sophia marveled at the steam-weaving machines, which turned crude fibers into high-quality fabric with ease. Her role as chief gave her a sense of purpose and fulfillment she had never known in her old, restricted life. The sewing machines were her favorite. They eliminated the frustration of erratic tailoring, allowing for mass production of consistent, well-fitted garments. Each machine was a marvel of engineering that simplified the lives of every worker. Inspecting the national flags, Sophia felt a deep connection to the values they represented: prosperity, power, liberation, and peace. She felt blessed to lead a department that was finally dressing the nation with dignity. In the capital of Yadin, Queen Ivy was unraveling. The news of her rival's intimate moments with the king had left her furious, driving her to plot petty and dangerous retaliations against the other concubines. Landon examined the new Baymardian calendars, a project Tim had successfully realized. These booklets were not just trackers of time. They were tools for public education, filled with hygiene tips and useful contacts to guide the citizens. With time on his side, Landon directed the glass industry toward more complex instruments, precision lenses, and clinical thermometers. These were critical steps for future medical advancements, moving beyond primitive estimations toward scientific accuracy. Meanwhile, Martyr Shannon traveled towards Riverdale, haunted by the suspicion of betrayal. His camp was cold and tense, as he prepared for the dangers he believed Baron Kane and the king were orchestrating against him. The night exploded into violence as assassins targeted Martyr in his sleep. With practiced precision, his hidden guards sprung the trap, successfully repelling the ambush in a bloody display of survival. The housing tour commenced, and the citizens of Baymard were speechless at the sight of sturdy, modern homes. For families accustomed to living in precarious huts, these cement structures were nothing short of a miracle from the gods. Every feature, from electric lighting to indoor plumbing, was met with stunned admiration. As they marveled at the tap, the realization hit that their lives were fundamentally changing for the better, thanks to their king's vision. With the housing mission complete, the system rewarded Landon with vast medical knowledge and new technological points. Yet, the system's talk of cosmic contracts and level-based progression felt like a bizarre, unwanted game. His brother Santa arrived, marking a rare moment of levity. While they shared a warm reunion, Landon kept his industrial progress tightly veiled, prioritizing the safety of Baymard above all else as he prepared for the future. Landon integrated the learned slaves into his administration, training them as clerks and accountants. He was building the skeleton of a modern bureaucracy, one that would handle everything from payroll to complex financial records. With fresh hands on deck, the construction of the pharmaceutical industry began. Landon was determined to scale up medical production, knowing that his path forward was inextricably linked to the health and technological education of his people. He even began planning a grand mall, an ambitious project that would serve as the commercial soul of Baymard. He refused to think small. He would go big, transforming this primitive land into a beacon of modern civilization. Across the lands, tensions fermented. The young lord, pushed to the brink of madness by his brother's rise, swore an oath of vengeance. The stage was being set for a clash that would test everything Landon had built. Landon stood firm, looking out over the city he had resurrected from the dust. He knew the threats looming on the horizon, but he was ready. With science on his side, he would forge a future that could withstand any storm. Every policy, every industry, and every home built was a calculated piece in his larger strategy. Landon remained patient, a master playing a game on a world stage he intended to reshape completely. As the moon hung high over Baymard, the city hummed with the quiet energy of progress. This was only the beginning. The king's vision had become reality, and the echoes of his transformation would soon be heard across the entire world. Deep in the shadows of the borderlands, Prince Barn travels under the guise of an ordinary soldier. Reincarnated into this dangerous world, he balances his secret ambitions while playing a deadly game against his brothers and the mysterious ghostly prince. The letters he received were a direct challenge to his authority, pricking at his pride. With a laugh that unnerved his loyal guard, Illy realized that his enemies had eyes everywhere, and a storm was gathering in the south. Dismissing his younger brothers as mere insects, Ili focuses his attention on his distant rival in Baymard, secretly maneuvering his forces to secure his future dominance. Meanwhile, in the developing city of Baymard, the exiled Prince Landon, formerly a modern engineer, works tirelessly to reform his people. He distributes medical knowledge to his new staff, laying the foundation for a scientific revolution. With modern concepts of anatomy and immunology, Landon prepares his teachers to lead the next generation, strictly guarding these secrets to ensure Baymard's technological independence remains shielded from foreign spies. Hundreds of miles away, the arrogant knights Brody and Titus arrive at Riverdale, tasked with a dark mission, to determine if the supposedly dead Prince Landon still draws breath or to claim his lands for the Crown Prince. As the scouts approach, Landon dons the facade of a struggling, impoverished ruler, hiding his modern advancements behind layers of tattered fabric and the appearance of a dying city. Facing his brother's arrogant emissaries, Landon maintains his ruse, feigning weakness and poor health. The knights, blinded by their own prejudice, treat him with open contempt, never suspecting the mind beneath the beggar's rags. But when the insults turned to his mother, the facade shattered. With speed they never expected, Landon struck, silencing the knights' arrogance with a display of hidden strength that left his enemies reeling in shock. Though they retreated in shame, the message was clear. Landon had chosen his path. If a war was what they wanted, then a war is what they would receive. With the threat temporarily held at bay, the internal development of Baymard accelerated. The new banking system opened its doors, a beacon of order in a world of chaotic money temples and crushing debts. Landon's vision of a structured society took shape as industry leaders learned to manage their finances, replacing the predatory practices of the old world with a system built on transparency and security. Across the continent, the Yawden Empire held a grand banquet to decide the future. Tension hung in the air like a shroud, as princes and their mothers vied for the crown beneath a veneer of courtly grace. The court was stunned into silence. The prince they all dismissed as a coward, Sirius MacLean, revealed himself to be the architect of the empire's recent successes, claiming the throne with absolute certainty. Back in Baymard, life continued its rapid transformation. Education flourished as the youth engaged in chemistry and tactical studies, unaware of the wars and political shifts occurring beyond their city's protective borders. Landon's ambition grew as he oversaw the expansion of his industries. New, modern machinery replaced the old, and the city's defense was elevated as plans for a new, impenetrable steel-reinforced wall began to manifest. With the creation of King's Landing, the buffer zone between the city and the wild, Landon designed a fortress of progress, a logistical hub that would soon welcome trade and secure Baymard against any invader. Amidst the heavy labor of building a nation, Landon paused to prepare for his birthday, marking a time for his people to come together and celebrate the growth they had achieved in such a short time. The new books had a profound impact. Families grew closer, and children began to understand the sacrifices their parents had made, creating a cultural shift toward unity that was just as vital as the physical city walls. Meanwhile, the treachery within the royal families grew deeper. Prince James Barn crept through the shadows of an underground tunnel, driven by greed and desperation to broker a deal with the kingdom's sworn enemies. The demand was simple: 60% of Arcadina's land for the price of his brother's head. James, trapped by his own previous machinations, had no choice but to agree, planting the seeds for a catastrophe yet to come. Back at the palace, Jeanette's madness intensified as she obsessed over her wedding, seeing threats in every corner. Her cruelty toward the servants reflected the darkness bubbling underneath her perfect facade. The rivalry between Jeanette and Angelina reached a boiling point, a petty war of words that hid the lethal ambition fueling both women as they prepared for their respective rises to power. As Angelina left, Jeanette's laughter echoed through the empty room. It was the sound of a woman who felt she had already won, unaware of the shadows that were closing in on her own life. In the training grounds of Baymard, the tension between Major General Gary and the spirited Private Ruby hit its peak. What they saw as mutual hatred was clearly, to everyone else, a burgeoning, if complicated, love. In a moment of uncharacteristic vulnerability, Gary confessed his feelings, though the soldier within him knew that the coming trials would threaten to tear them apart forever. With the city's defenses and social structures solidified, Landon turned his eye toward the inevitable winter. Baymard was prepared, the animals were being moved to warmth, and the food supplies were secured. Every contingency had been accounted for. Gregory and the Agricultural Council managed the imports, ensuring that no citizen would go hungry when the snow began to fall and the frost gripped the earth. Back at the secret base, the return of the prodigal son, Willie, signaled a shift in the balance of power. The family gathered, oblivious to the fact that their fate was already inextricably tied to the rising power of Baymard. The world outside was a tapestry of greed, betrayal, and war, but within these walls, Landon built a sanctuary of progress. The winter was coming, but Baymard was more than ready for whatever horror the continent threw at them. William returns from the capital, bearing secrets that threaten to shift the balance of power. The snow powder, a volatile substance of destruction, becomes the centerpiece of a desperate strategic debate as the family realizes their rivals are already one step ahead. Beyond the safety of their walls, the family conducts grim experiments. They test the power of the snow powder against stone and wood, discovering that while it struggles against masonry, it tears through timber with terrifying efficiency. A brush with disaster turns into a realization. As a stray spark races toward their supply, William and his kin narrowly escape a premature blast that leaves the earth upturned and the stone wall cracked, revealing the destructive potential of their invention. In Baymard, life moves toward a different horizon. The students of the public school prepare for their final field trips, searching for their future callings in a city reborn through industry and innovation. The journey leads Henry to the heart of Baymard's infrastructure. Surrounded by cutting-edge glass buildings, he listens as Mrs. Rena describes the complex work of a plant operator, finding the spark of a true calling. What begins as disgust at the sight of sewage ends in a profound revelation. Henry watches the magic of science turn waste into life-giving water, cementing his desire to become a steward of this vital industry. With new trade and new slaves arriving, Landon sets his sights on the next stage of growth. 2 new academies are born, one for police and another for guards, designed to keep the peace in a rapidly changing world. The new recruits face a rigorous path ahead. Landon demands discipline and knowledge, creating a structure that mirrors the military's own, ensuring that Baymard's future protectors are as capable as they are brave. Infrastructure remains the spine of Baymard's success. Landon directs the construction of a new printing industry, knowing that efficient, electrically powered machines will soon replace their manual burdens. Innovations extend from heavy machinery to the smallest personal needs. Landon introduces toothpaste and modern brushes, replacing rough salt and twigs with scientific solutions to ensure the health of his citizens. To solve the logistical struggle of heavy deliveries, Landon unveils corrugated cardboard. Simple, light, and durable, these boxes will soon become the standard for the city's blossoming trade industry. The expansion of the city wall takes Landon to the edge of the deep forest. As machines churn the earth, the shadow of the wilderness watches back, unseen eyes tracking the progress of human ambition. The forest strikes back. A Hangal, a beast of nightmare proportions, ambushes the work crew. Moby fights for his life while Rico freezes, his courage fractured by the fear of harming his comrade. The beast is slain, but the victory feels hollow. Landon recognizes the dangerous crack in his men's resolve. They are masters of the target, but children when the lives of their comrades are on the line. A new training initiative begins. Landon conceptualizes the simunition gun, a tool of paint and metal designed to bridge the gap between training and reality, forcing his men to feel the sting of failure before they face the enemy. Unseen by the city, a new threat arrives. Obadiah, a slave trader of predatory instinct, approaches Baymard with 20 men. They mistake the city's humble appearance for weakness, planning to harvest its people like ripe fruit. The wolf arrives in shepherd's clothing. Obadiah offers grand, empty promises of wealth and a promised land, unaware that he is standing before the very man who holds the fate of the city in his hands. The facade shatters. When Landon dares to question his wealth and power, Obadiah's charm evaporates into a violent temper. He believes his master's name alone will strike fear into the hearts of these peasants. The arrogance of the slave traders is met with the cold precision of Baymard's reality. A signal is given, and the black metal sticks, guns unknown to the traders, are raised in a line of final judgment. Pain, sudden and sharp, marks the end of their hubris. The traders fall, their confidence shattered by the burning fire of the bullets. Even in defeat, they demand weapons, driven by a greed that clouds their impending demise. There is no mercy for those who trade in human life. As the final shots ring out, Landon ensures the threat is extinguished forever, their bodies destined for the medical academy rather than a grave. The traders' belongings hold a map to a hell beneath the earth. Letters reveal the sickening games of the underground entertainment centers in Corona, fueling Landon's resolve to purge the world of such cruelty. The dark business of the world is momentarily forgotten as the castle glows. Citizens gather for Landon's birthday, a celebration that weaves a sense of unity and hope through the fabric of Baymard. Laughter fills the hall as the cake is cut, and the people toast to a king who brought them out of the cold. For one night, the burdens of history are lifted by the spirit of a community that finally knows its worth. But shadows persist in the empire. In the capital, the eldest princess, Jeanette, prepares for her own dark celebration. She sees her path to the throne through a marriage that is merely a prelude to a patricide. In her final moments of innocence, Jeanette makes an oath of love, unaware that the wine she drinks contains her demise. She trusts Anthony with her life, failing to see the betrayal etched into his cold gaze. The room becomes a stage for cruelty. Carrie and Anthony shed their masks, revealing their hidden affair and the orchestrated betrayal that has stripped Jeanette of everything she held dear. Betrayal is the final curtain. As Sir Death delivers the fatal blow, Jeanette makes a final, silent oath to the universe. Even in death, she will never let herself be shackled by love again. Back in Baymard, science continues to demand its due. Landon guides his students through the grim reality of anatomy, stripping away the mysteries of death to sharpen the tools of the healers. The cycle of growth never ceases. Landon leads his men into the final scenario training, forging bonds of iron through simulated war, ensuring that when the real threat finally arrives, Baymard will be ready. In this test of nerves and strategy, the Three Musketeers and the Fantastic Seven are cast as hostages in a mock kidnapping drill. Landon watches with approval as his veterans practice the art of hostage management, ensuring they are prepared for the harsh realities of potential enemy captures. Landon demands perfection, knowing that a single lapse in judgment could spell the end for Baymard. He orders his men to secure the hostages in cells that, while appearing bleak, are actually hidden within the safety of his own estate, separating the simulation from reality. With the deadline looming, Landon reorganizes his forces. Vigilance is their only shield against the inevitable strikes of Lucius, who is sure to test the perimeter as darkness falls over the Baymard estate. Meanwhile, the enemy camp hums with predatory intent. Lucius and his officers map out their 4 planned attacks, determined to exploit any weakness in Landon's defense to rescue the hostages and capture the leader. Under the ink-dark sky, the raid begins. Billy and his team crawl through the tall grass like stalking lions, their faces blackened and their movements practiced, seeking to infiltrate the perimeter undetected. Chaos erupts at the front gate. The simulation turns brutal as bullets rain down, and soldiers on both sides realize that the sting of the paint pellets is far more agonizing than they had anticipated, fueling their resolve to win. Landon's traps prove deadly effective. Billy watches as his men are systematically taken out by hidden tripwires and nets. He realizes that the front line is a death trap and orders a strategic retreat before more lives are lost in the exercise. The final hours arrive, and the simulation reaches a stalemate. The leaders, Landon and Lucius, face off in the courtyard of the estate, their movements mirroring one another as they engage in a high-stakes duel to decide the fate of the remaining hostages. Across the grounds, the battle rages. Elite soldiers fight with acrobatics and tactical precision, pushing their bodies to the breaking point. Yet, as the clock winds down, both sides are forced to accept that the mission has ended in a draw. The dust settles. Though the exercise ended without a clear victory, the soldiers are exhilarated. They have learned the value of precision, the agony of defeat, and the necessity of constant vigilance in their mission to protect Baymard. With the drills concluded, Landon shifts his focus to the shadows. He personally imparts crucial information regarding underground business to Santa's men, knowing that the safety of his burgeoning city depends on the absolute secrecy of these dealings. Baymard is growing at a staggering pace. With nearly 60,000 people now calling this city home, Landon carefully structures his workforce, pouring thousands into alchemy, construction, and textiles to prepare for the grand opening in July. Landon pushes the boundaries of innovation, introducing timekeeping and office efficiency to his people. He presents the designs for wristwatches and alarm clocks, leaving his most trusted assistants in complete, reverent shock at his brilliance. The introduction of the photocopying machine promises to revolutionize administrative work. Landon patiently explains the complex interaction of light, conductivity, and ions, pushing his engineers to master technologies that were once only the stuff of dreams. Communication is the heartbeat of a modern city. Landon initiates the production of radios, teaching his workers the principles of wave frequency and sine waves. He is laying the foundation for a future where information travels at the speed of sound. Meanwhile, the empire of Arcadina is plagued by treachery. Martyr Shannon receives word of his father's death, and his reaction is swift and merciless. He demands blood, tearing apart the lives of the soldiers who failed to protect his lineage. At the border, Landon Barn prepares his next move. With 25,000 men at his command, he strategizes to exploit a weakness in the northern gate, intending to sow discord and confusion within the enemy city. The night holds hidden dangers. Assassins infiltrate the general's tent, but they find only death, as Ili's elite bodyguards, hidden in the shadows, make short work of the intruders. The attempted strike only confirms the presence of internal and external enemies. For those like Elijah and his family, Baymard is a sanctuary from the chaos of their past lives. Having fled the horrors of blood gangs and slavery, they finally find peace, stability, and the chance to build a real life. Life in Baymard is demanding, but it is also fair and rewarding. Elijah and Wally navigate the intricacies of the recycling industry, their friendship deepening as they share dreams of a future where they can contribute to this great city's success. Landon's responsibilities extend to the lifeblood of his city, its children. He takes personal charge of the delivery ward, teaching his doctors and nurses the science of life, ensuring that every mother and baby has a fighting chance. The cries of a newborn signal a new beginning. Ruana's successful delivery is a testament to the life-saving potential of Landon's hospital. For the new parents, the pain of labor is quickly eclipsed by the miracle of new life. Innovation never stops. Landon introduces essential medicines like Tylenol, Advil, and penicillin to Baymard. He works closely with Ramsey to ensure these drugs are produced to the highest standards, safeguarding the health of the entire population. In the Empire of Corona, old friends Santa and Queen Penelope confront their hidden feelings. Their bond, forged in the fires of their youth, is tested by the weight of the crown and the dangerous political climate. The moment of vulnerability is shattered by ambushers sent by the treacherous Queen Ivy. Santa and Penelope fight back, not as separate entities, but as a unified force, their combat skills surprising their would-be assassins. As the year ends, so does an era for the students of Baymard. Graduation day arrives, bringing families together to celebrate the hard-won achievements of their children. The sight of their names on the wall is a source of immense pride. Landon delivers a speech that echoes through the hearts of every graduate. He speaks of duty, choice, and the responsibility that comes with opportunity, inspiring the new workforce to forge their own destiny in Baymard's future. For Henry, shaking the hand of his leader is a defining moment. It marks his transition from student to productive citizen, cementing his commitment to be kind, work hard, and contribute to the prosperity of his city. With the new year underway, Phase 2 of Landon's plan begins. The coastal region is transformed, with the Navy base and new infrastructure emerging to guard Baymard against the threats looming on the horizon. Transportation is the next frontier. As spring arrives, Landon sets the foundation for a train network that will shrink the distances of his city, preparing Baymard for the influx of visitors in July and securing its future as an industrial power. The story follows the journey of the protagonist, originally a modern man who transmigrated into the body of Landon Barn, a prince now ruler of the developing Baymard city. In this chapter, Landon reveals advanced, impossible technology to his brother figure, the merchant Santa, cementing a secret alliance that will reshape their world. Landon hands out VIP passes that look like modern credit cards, deep dark blue and smooth, signaling to Santa that Baymard is light years ahead of the rest of the Pino continent's medieval standards. Santa laments his domestic plight, caught between the suffocating, loving control of Princess Penelope and her family's rigorous combat training, which has left him fitter but utterly exhausted. Business turns to grim reality as Landon provides evidence of illegal underground camps in Corona. Santa, realizing the danger to his future kingdom, understands that the time for hesitation has passed. Landon strategically prepares Baymard's defense, planning to strike at Knopline's operations under the guise of an outside force, while ensuring his city is impregnable by July. As they tour the city in a double-decker bus, Santa is struck by the efficiency and modern design of Baymard, realizing that Landon has built a paradise that defies the limitations of their era. The palace, renovated to reflect modern luxury, leaves Santa and his crew speechless. The marble floors and clarity of the mirrors reveal their own unkempt appearances for the first time. Simple luxuries like indoor plumbing, soap, and heating in the palace bathrooms feel like magic to the visitors, cementing their desire to stay forever. In the isolation of the time capsule, Landon plans the next 3 months of development, focusing on entertainment, food industries, and the expansion of Baymard's influence. Landon maps out an ambitious infrastructure project, including go-kart racing, spas, and a national park, all while meticulously planning the production of sweets and hygiene products to captivate the public. Returning to reality, Landon allocates tasks. The military is prepped for the rescue mission, and operatives are sent to gather intel, with every piece of the puzzle moving into place. Meanwhile, the royal Barn Palace is steeped in darkness and gloom. King Alec Barn demands performance from his third wife, Arcadina, who has been spiraling into a shell of a woman since their daughter's death. Alec's heart is cold. He treats his daughters as mere political currency. He confronts Arcadina, threatening her with death if she fails to please him, showing his complete lack of empathy for her grief. A secret note appears in her chamber, signed by the mysterious Master G.P., promising to reveal the murderer of her daughter, Janet, and setting Arcadina on a dangerous path of vengeance. Arcadina enlists her loyal, terrifyingly loyal servant Benvolio, the man known as the Laughing Maniac, to help her escape the palace and meet her mysterious informant. The trio infiltrates the dangerous, ale-soaked Venigard tavern. Under the cover of darkness and peasant clothing, they find the hidden room to overhear the truth they have been seeking. The revelation is heart-wrenching. She hears Carrie and Anthony laughing about their crime, revealing their twisted ambition to climb to the throne after Illy, leaving Arcadina to burn with a new, cold fury. In Riverdale City, Mark and his intelligence team work in the fields, successfully gathering intel on the ruthless martyr and his plans for vengeance, all while remaining undetected. Back in Baymard, the production lines are at maximum efficiency. Skilled workers paint, assemble, and clothe dolls that represent diverse professions, each box designed with precision to capture the hearts of the future generation. The school semester is in full swing. Students like Linda and Momo are immersed in advanced science, learning to view the world through the lens of chemistry, relating every reaction to daily life. In the lab, the students successfully perform the elephant toothpaste experiment. Their success is a testament to the rigorous, hands-on teaching style implemented by the teachers under Landon's guidance. The stage is set. Landon has arrived at the shores of Corona. Under the cover of the dark, cloudy night, he and his elite squad prepare to dismantle the underground slavery network. Landon pushes his men toward the outskirts of Reginal City. Despite the grueling trek, he remains the selfless leader, choosing to keep watch while his troops rest before the mission. With the map finalized, the tactical plan is locked in. The mission is to strike the 3 key entrances simultaneously, neutralize the guards, and rescue the prisoners in a lightning-fast operation. The operation begins with surgical precision. Using their superior technology and stealth, the soldiers systematically dismantle the outer security perimeter, leaving the guards clueless before death finds them. Inside the camp, they reach the Hall of Horrors. Landon intervenes just in time to rescue a young girl from her attackers, her cries for help silenced by the cold reality of justice. In the underground arena, Gary confronts the corrupt nobles who treat human suffering as a spectator sport. There is no mercy left in his heart as he clears the room of the guilty. The camp is dismantled, the prisoners freed, and the resources stolen from Knopline are whisked away. By the time the morning comes, only the echo of Landon's strike will remain in the empty tunnels. A brand new day dawned on Reginald City as the morning rays chased away the shadows. But the serene atmosphere was soon broken by a scene of inexplicable terror outside the city gates. Local merchant Swanson stood paralyzed, staring into a bottomless chasm that tore through the landscape like a giant finger carved by the wrath of the heavens. The city lord arrived to assess the damage, aware that his secret alliance with the criminal underworld had been obliterated by an unknown, powerful force. Entering the site of the former camp, the stench of death overwhelmed Morok, who stood among his fallen men, realizing that nearly 20% of his force had been erased in a single night. A chilling note was waiting for him, signed by a name that meant nothing to the high nobility, yet signaled the rise of a new and dangerous adversary. Unbeknownst to the frantic city authorities, Landon Barn had already vanished into the horizon, his first major strike against the slave trade a complete, resounding success. Santa, the seasoned merchant and brother in spirit, stared at Landon with bewilderment, struggling to comprehend how such an impossible feat could be achieved with such calm poise. In the capital of Yawden, the air was thick with anticipation, as the populace prepared to crown the third prince, Sirius MacLean, as their new visionary ruler. Queen Ivy's composure shattered like glass, her fury boiling over as she berated the incompetent failures who had missed every opportunity to eliminate her rival. Second Queen Sedora seized the moment to pour salt into the wound, reveling in the shared humiliation that paralyzed their efforts to grasp the throne. Far away in Indomia, Prince James Barn lay battered and broken, a pathetic victim of his own failed schemes and a target of relentless, brutal assassination attempts. While his brother James crumbled, Connor remained in the shadows, his mind churning with cold calculations as he sought to manipulate the upcoming succession for his own gain. Unaware of the plots swirling around him, Barn waited with impatient confidence, anticipating the moment his forces would finally crush the remnants of his bastard brother's resistance. In the fields of Riverdale, the cruelty of the ruling class weighed heavily upon the weary, where a single moment of rest was met with sharp, stone-cold violence. General Mark's soldiers, masters of disguise and infiltration, orchestrated a convincing performance of illness to bypass the watchful, arrogant eyes of the local supervisors. Supervisor Mowgli, blinded by his own perceived superiority and superstitious fears, unwittingly granted the infiltrators the freedom they needed to roam the city unnoticed. Back at their safe house, the team compiled their findings, uncovering the hidden agendas of local barons and the lingering threats to their sovereign, Baymard. Ava's quiet retribution had ensured their security, her surgical precision in cutting the noblewoman's hair marking a turning point in their covert survival. Over 1,000 vengeful knights, led by the ruthless captains Titus and Brody, descended upon the region, thirsty for the blood of the one who had humiliated them. Inside Baymard, Princess Lucy stood upon the majestic walls, the weight of her fiancé's trust grounding her as she prepared to command the defense of their home. An arrogant messenger arrived at the gates, his words dripping with venom and insults, unaware that he was standing before the future queen he so foolishly mocked. With a cold, precise movement learned through grueling training, Lucy shattered the messenger's arrogance, delivering a blow that left him groveling in the dirt. The enemy advanced, confident in their numbers and superiority, their mockery echoing across the fields while they marched toward their own inevitable destruction. At Lucy's command, the silence of the field was torn asunder by the roar of advanced technology, launching a devastating, coordinated strike that caught the army completely off guard. The battlefield was transformed into a chaotic inferno of smoke and fire, a cursed landscape where the invading knights discovered that their swords were useless against an unseen, crushing power. Broken and hopeless, the once proud captains huddled together in the dirt, their final moments spent recounting the horrors they had committed before the missiles finally silenced them. Victory was claimed, but the cost weighed heavily on Lucy, whose heart mourned the loss of life even as she stood tall as the protector of Baymard. As the dust of battle settled, Landon received his reward, the system leveling up and opening new horizons in his journey to purge the world and build a better future. Santa, a man who has traveled between worlds to serve the empire of Corona, finds himself in a tense confrontation. His return from his secret mission has not been met with warmth, but with the icy fury of his fiancée, Penelope. Despite his subtle signals to his future father-in-law and grandfather-in-law, Santa finds no refuge. They remain stubbornly indifferent, leaving the young man to face the wrath of his fire-breathing fiancée alone. With a swift, practiced motion, Penelope draws her steel, turning a domestic disagreement into a perilous chase. Santa, realizing the danger, begins to retreat toward her study as the high-stakes interrogation begins. Inside the sanctuary of her study, Santa faces the interrogation. He reveals the truth about his secret mission, a necessary, albeit unauthorized, operation for the safety of Corona which he managed while evading detection. The mood shifts from domestic to political, as Santa reports the treachery of the city lords. Carmelo, the king, is blindsided by the revelation that underground camps were operating right under their noses for 8 long years. Santa pivots the conversation to the wonders of Baymard. He introduces the VIP passes, promising the royal family a vacation unlike anything they have ever experienced, effectively swaying them with the allure of a new, mysterious city. In the distant Riverdale city, the ambitious martyr learns of mysterious knights moving through the woods toward Baymard. Fear and greed battle within him as he debates whether to investigate or conserve his dwindling forces. Landon returns to Baymard to find his vision coming to life. The harbor, transformed into a sprawling, efficient, octopus-shaped hub of commerce, stands as a testament to his engineering prowess and the hard work of his people. Landon convenes an emergency meeting of his core leadership team. His humility earns him their unwavering loyalty as they recount the successful expansion of food products, pharmaceuticals, and the innovative new logistics of the city. Landon initiates the establishment of Baymard's firefighting force. These are not merely rescuers of fires, but a specialized emergency response unit trained for hazardous material containment and disaster management in their burgeoning city. The final, largest batch of refugees from the underground camps arrives. Landon addresses the crowd, assigning them roles ranging from education and healthcare to the new naval and marine forces, securing their future in Baymard. Construction begins on the Baymard National Zoo. Tim, overflowing with excitement, helps oversee a project that will house dozens of ferocious, exotic species in environments designed for both visitor safety and animal welfare. In the distant empire of Tariq, the ruthless Queen Kamara rages. Her scheme to place her son, the inept Lecter, on the throne is failing to bear fruit as her assassination attempts on Landon Barn continue to crumble. Education remains at the forefront of Landon's plans. He establishes the first culinary and bartending academy, a prestigious institution destined to revolutionize the culinary arts while simultaneously creating wealth through high-end exports. Borrowing from the competitive spirit of culinary dramas, Landon designs the academy's housing and ranking systems. Students will battle for luxury suites, fostering a culture of excellence and high-stakes innovation. Martyr continues his uneasy governance, receiving reports of the site where Shannon's forces were annihilated. Suspicion clings to Landon Barn, and Martyr prepares his remaining knights for an eventual, cautious excursion into the Forbidden Zone. The journey toward Baymard has begun. A fleet carrying the Caronan royal family and Santa's extended clan traverses the ocean, filled with skeptical passengers unaware of the technological wonders waiting for them on the horizon. Santa stands at the helm of the group's excitement, though he is met with skepticism. The royal family and their entourage, accustomed to the luxury of the capital, remain unconvinced that any remote city could surpass their own. The arrival at the harbor leaves the visitors speechless. Guided by the impeccably dressed Frida, they are introduced to a level of logistical sophistication, professionalism, and urban planning they never thought possible. Passing through the automatic sliding doors of the coastal port, the visitors are gripped by a sense of magical awe. The seamless technology and gleaming marble architecture force them to confront their own ignorance of Baymard's power. The VIP treatment secures the group's loyalty before they even meet the king. Between the luxury lounge access and the modern amenities, the skeptics are rapidly transformed into awestruck converts of Baymard's superiority. Transportation in Baymard is unlike anything they have ever seen. They board a bus, marveling at the soft seating and the sophisticated radio systems that amplify the guide's voice, further deepening their sense of being in a new world. The moment of truth arrives at the palace. As Landon and his family descend the staircase, the visitors perceive them not as mere men, but as gods, their presence commanding and their poise beyond anything in their experience. Bonding over games of chess and feats of combat, Landon subtly charms his visitors. He doesn't just want to impress them. He wants to demonstrate the strength and lifestyle that Baymard promises for their shared future. In the shadow of a rain-drizzled night, James Barn initiates a desperate, murderous plot. Believing he is about to assassinate Barn, he leads his force into what he thinks is a death trap, completely blind to the reality of the situation. James's assault collapses instantly when he confronts the wrong brother. Instead of he faces Connor Barn. Confusion gives way to the chilling realization that both brothers have been manipulated by the same assassin. The elusive Mr. Death reveals himself to the brothers, his cool demeanor and taunting words stripping away their remaining composure. He declares that they have both been pawns in his elaborate, lethal game. Trapped and outmaneuvered, the brothers face a grim future. Mr. Death holds all the cards, offering them a chance at survival if they choose to play his twisted game for the next 10 days. The game has begun. In the bustling city of Baymard, the young noble Herman finds himself abandoning his stiff, warrior-like upbringing for the simple, unbridled joy of childhood, finally shedding his armor for a day of pure, unfiltered fun. The parents, Duke Samuel and Duchess Mina, watch in quiet amusement as their children, usually bound by the rigid etiquette of the Pino continent, trade their responsibilities for a rare taste of freedom. Guided by their new friends, the children arrive at the Baymard transit station, where the sheer size and mechanical marvel of the trains leave them utterly spellbound by the progress of this strange new land. With the confidence of a seasoned traveler, little Momo expertly navigates the train schedules, turning the complex transit system into a simple game of lines and colors for his wide-eyed companions. The rhythmic clatter of the train tracks pulses beneath their feet as they journey deeper into the heart of Baymard, the windows blurring with the scenery of a district that feels like another world entirely. Linda, now well acquainted with the unforgiving timing of the Baymard train system, urges the group to hurry, determined not to let their slow pace cost them a second of their precious afternoon. They arrive at the crown jewel of Baymard's youth entertainment, a towering facility where the hum of engines replaces the quiet of the classroom, and the scent of gasoline ignites the competitive spirit in their blood. After a rigorous safety briefing, Herman receives his mini-junior license, a tangible piece of paper that feels more like a key to a new existence than a simple document, a symbol of his very first independent achievement. The red light glows like a warning, then shifts to yellow. Herman clutches the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white, every sound of the busy world fading until only the thumping of his own heart remains. Green, the engines roar in unison, and they are off. The wind lashes at his face as Herman pushes his cart to the limit, dancing across the grass and asphalt, the thrill of the race flowing through his veins. He overtakes a cart with precision, his laughter joining the collective cheer of the spectators lining the track. For the first time in his life, the young knight feels truly, vibrantly alive. While the children race, Landon shifts his focus to the industrial heartbeat of Baymard, where the rhythmic sparks of automated welding define the creation of the Empire's mighty new fishing and cargo fleet. Months of meticulous construction culminate in the birth of the first cargo ships. These metal behemoths, designed with multiple subterranean decks, promise a future where Baymard's goods can cross the seas with ease. The transfer begins. With a roar of heavy machinery, the fleet is moved to the new coastal headquarters, a facility fortified with strict security to protect the burgeoning fishing industry from unwanted eyes. Fishermen turned mariners watch in awe as Landon breaks down the complexities of the ship's controls. Each lever and button, a mystery mere days ago, now becomes a tool in their hands to master the vast ocean. As the nets break the water's surface, the deck is flooded with a catch unlike anything the fishermen have ever seen. The days of struggling for a dozen fish are gone, replaced by the abundance of modern maritime ingenuity. Far away in the empire of Arcadina, shadows gather as reports reach a local lord about the strange, flourishing city of Baymard. He dispatches his men, eyes narrowed in greed and suspicion, to uncover the secrets of the rising power. Two covert riders, Eve and Shylock, begin their long trek toward Baymard. They act as wolves in sheep's clothing, stalking the carriage of strangers who possess a mysterious royal warrant, all while keeping their own true allegiance hidden. Tensions flare on the road as the night captain, shielding his identity and ego behind royal parchment, grows increasingly paranoid about the two riders he believes are bandits planning an ambush. They reach the city gates of Baymard, a structure of intimidating height and impenetrable design that leaves the visitors speechless. These gates are not merely stone and wood, they are a warning to all who enter. Confrontation erupts at the visa desk. The captain, fueled by pride and a disdain for the commoners of Baymard, refuses to sign the egalitarian laws, demanding to see a city lord who does not exist. The conflict escalates to violence. In a flash of blue electricity, the guards neutralize the threat. The arrogant knights collapse, their bodies racked by invisible, agonizing vibrations that shatter their illusions of superiority. In the distant empire of Dafris, the tyrannical Princess Eldora storms through the palace, a whirlwind of malice. Servants and guards alike cower, knowing that her mere presence is a harbinger of cruel, unpredictable violence. Acting the role of a wounded lamb, she manipulates the king, weaving a web of lies to secure her own agenda. She demands marriage to King Sirius, her eyes cold even as her tears fall like rain. Coronation Day arrives in a flurry of color and sound. Baymard transforms into a sea of celebration, the streets vibrating with music as the people prepare to crown their king, a man who gave them everything. The festive air gives way to solemn reverence at the palace. Under the watchful eyes of priests, Landon kneels to receive the crown, his humble oath binding his life to the service of his empire forever. Standing before his people, the new king delivers a speech of unity and hope. He declares a new era, the birth of the Baymard Empire, a beacon of progress and freedom in a dark, cold world. Meanwhile, the captured royals languish in a dungeon of horrors. For 10 agonizing days, they have shared their living space with rats and rot, their spirits broken by the cruel indifference of Mr. Death. The games of blood begin. Forced into an arena of death traps, the survivors are pitted against one another. With only a spoon in hand, Connor must fight for his life, while dark machinations stir in the shadows of empires. William, the mastermind from a distant land who had transmigrated into this world, observed the horizon with a heavy heart, mourning his cousin Landon's fate while orchestrating a silent rescue mission. Deep in the dark, pathless woods of Arcadina, Connor and his broken band of soldiers huddled around a fire, nursing their permanent wounds from the deadly games they barely survived. Back in Baymard, summer's splendor was overshadowed by a wild, infectious frenzy. The civilians moved like a swarm, driven by the historic launch of the city's very first radio stations. Amidst the store chaos, Carmelo and his companions secured a radio. When the first broadcast crackled to life, their disbelief turned into pure amazement at the wonder of modern technology. The eccentric Santa finally prepared to set sail, leaving behind a trail of dramatic farewells that left everyone, especially Landon, feeling an overwhelming collective headache. With the ships ready, Landon and Lucius finalized the strategic plans to raid the training estates and slave camps. determined to grow Baymard's protective forces through decisive military action. Landon toured the burgeoning industrial district, marveling at the modernized buildings. He tasked Tim with building new factories for essential goods, pushing Baymard further into the future. In the sterile quiet of the hospital, Landon prepared for the surgery. Adrian, though nervous, trusted his life to the king, marking a critical step in their alliance. Far away in Whitewood City, Landon Barn erupted in fury upon learning of his brother's incompetence. James had nearly traded away the kingdom's land, fueling Ellie's hunger for the throne. King Alec rejoiced at the news of Shannon's death, yet his laughter faded into a cold, calculating fear. If not Shannon, then who was the true shadow mastermind behind his enemies? James, humbled by the loss of his forces, clung to a desperate plan. He believed that recruiting his uncle's knights would be the key to reclaiming his stature and his throne. Back at the military hall, Landon addressed his soldiers, detailing the dangerous missions ahead. The air was thick with the weight of duty and the promise of impending sacrifice. The day of the great car show arrived, and the people of Baymard arrived in droves. Their eyes sparkled with greed and wonder at the fleet of colorful, motorized machines. The car show was a spectacle of vanity and joy. Women clamored for the pink SUVs, leaving their husbands to grumble in bewilderment at the changing world around them. With the cars sold and the mission set, Landon saw his soldiers off. Their departure marked the beginning of a massive, coordinated effort to shatter the foundations of his enemies. In Profuse City, Baron Kane unleashed his fury upon his incompetent guards. The news of Shannon's death had blindsided him, leaving him vulnerable to the king's tightening grip. Levi Ryder, a former slave reborn as a Baymardian firefighter, woke up with a grateful heart. His life now held meaning, built on the hard work and hope offered by the king. In training, Levi pushed his body to the limit, mastering the art of confined space rescue. Every drop into the dark, simulated sewer was a testament to his newfound courage. After a grueling journey, Landon and his elite soldiers reached the outskirts of Ivanti City, the target of their next decisive strike against the dark networks of Nopline. At the city gates, Landon unleashed a psychological weapon, the madness spell. A guard began to dance uncontrollably, creating the perfect chaos needed for his team to slip through unnoticed. Under the veil of a silent night, the soldiers scaled the city walls using a human ladder. They moved like ghosts, infiltrating the heart of the enemy's territory with surgical precision. They reached the training estate, a fortress of cruelty. Above, the guards carelessly joked about the suffering of the slaves, completely unaware that their own end was seconds away. With a subtle flick of his hand, Landon signaled the assault. In the silence of the night, the fate of the fortress was sealed, and the revolution had truly begun. The guards fell without a sound, their laughter cut short by the cold reality of their choices. The estate was breached, and the road to liberation lay wide open. Stepping into the compound, Landon felt the chill of the slave camp's atmosphere. He would break every chain in this city before the sun rose again. The soldiers swept through the courtyard like a tidal wave of shadow, neutralizing threats before the camp guards could even comprehend that they were under attack. With the perimeter secured, Landon breached the main barracks. There would be no mercy for those who traded in human suffering and death. The tables had turned. The once arrogant guards now stood trembling in the face of a force they could never hope to understand or overcome. Landon approached the holding cells, the eyes of the slaves meeting his for the first time. The terror in their faces began to melt into the light of impending freedom. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, the camp was finally silent, save for the sound of shackles hitting the ground. The rescue had begun, and justice would be served. Under the cover of a silent night, Landon Barn, the visionary leader of Baymard, initiated a daring infiltration of Nopline's fortress. Alongside his elite team, he moved with calculated precision, neutralizing guards with tranquilizer darts before they could sound the alarm. With the guards incapacitated, Landon's soldiers secured the perimeter. Stripping the guards of their gear, they assumed the identities of the enemy, an act of subterfuge that would allow them to walk through the gates undetected. Private Adam, once dreaming of a cinematic heist against elite villains, found himself staring at a group of drunken, lazy guards. The reality of the mission was far less glamorous than the books he read, yet the danger remained absolute. The undercover team took their positions, hands trembling not from fear, but from the adrenaline of impending chaos. They held the small, deadly metal spheres tight, waiting for the signal to shatter the enemy's false sense of security. The peace of the night was shattered by thunderous booms. Grenades rained down on the archers, tearing through the enemy defenses with clinical efficiency. Chaos erupted, transforming the courtyard into a furnace of confusion. Panic spread through the ranks of the knights. They were leaderless and overwhelmed, caught in a trap of their own making. Landon's team moved through the smoke like ghosts, tightening their grip on the fortress gates. The main gate room was the next objective. Gavin and his men feigned desperation, tricking their way into the control room to seize the massive iron gates. They would ensure that not a single enemy escaped the coming storm. With a thunderous crash, the gates were sealed. The enemy was now trapped within the inner courtyard, a prison of stone and panic. The mission had reached its point of no return. The destruction continued. Using strategically placed explosives, Landon brought the very structures of the fortress down upon the heads of the trapped knights. The foundations crumbled, turning the upper levels into a mountain of debris. Landon and his men blended perfectly into the chaos, feigning confusion as if they too were victims of the collapsing walls. They navigated the maze of the estate, heading toward the underground slave quarters. The rescue phase had begun. Clovis led his team into the dark, damp depths of the basement. The air was thick with the scent of misery, but hope was about to be restored to the captives hidden below. The guards in the hallway didn't even have time to scream. Clovis's team, masters of the shadows, neutralized them with surgical precision. The path to the slave quarters was clear. Ewing and Tang reached the first row of cells. The captives were wary, hardened by years of abuse. They did not know if these men were rescuers or just another set of cruel masters. With a grunt of effort, the heavy bars were pried loose. Freedom, a distant and forgotten dream, was finally within their grasp. The captives joined the effort, their weary faces lighting up with a flicker of defiance. The veteran knights blocking the path proved to be a harder challenge. They rushed forward, blades drawn, believing they could overwhelm the intruders. They had no idea what they were up against. Bullets ripped through the silence of the basement. The veterans fell, their lives ending in a storm of lead. Clovis didn't hesitate. The mission was more important than mercy. The leader tried to bargain, offering treasures and power. Clovis, his face devoid of emotion, simply leveled his weapon. He knew their currency had no value against the justice of Baymard. Regrouping on the ground level, the mission entered its final phase. They had secured the slaves and decimated the guards. Now, it was time to vanish into the night. Days later, the fleet sailed toward the coast. Tears of joy flowed as families were reunited on the decks. Landon watched from the bow, his heart swelling with satisfaction. The rescue was complete. Back in Whitewood City, Landon Barn simmered in doubt. News from his brother had ceased, and a gnawing suspicion clouded his mind. He realized that the man he dismissed as a weakling was hiding a dangerous, growing power. In Preston City, City Lord Sanders dealt with the fallout of the failed mission. The men who returned, speaking of impossible weapons, were labeled as madmen and sent to the dungeons. Sanders ignored the truth, blinded by his own ambition. Thousands of miles away, the merchant Prince Nopline was consumed by rage. The letters had arrived, detailing the loss of his camps. A peasant, Landon Barn, had dared to strike at his empire. He would stop at nothing to destroy him. In Baymard, life thrived. Herman, once a slave, sat for his first mathematics exam. The school system pushed him, but he embraced the challenge, knowing that education was the key to rebuilding his cousin's legacy in Corona. Even the elders found solace in Baymard. Grandpa Adrian, once burdened by the heavy mantle of leadership, now felt the weight lift as he played games with friends who saw him as an equal, not a king. The training was grueling, designed to forge the Coronian knights into elite warriors. They pushed their bodies to the limit, sweating and bleeding, but finding pride in the B and A grades they earned for their discipline. December brought cold air, but Baymard warmed under the heat of progress. New goods, new laws, and a new life for the refugees marked the city's transformation. The empire was changing, one miracle at a time. Arriving from Arcadina, the spies Tyler and Brock stared at the city as if it were a dream. They had come to rescue a weak prince, but instead, they found a king who had built a realm of wonders. Mia, a former orphan, found purpose in the factory. She and the others processed the catch of the day, their productivity turning the tides of Baymard's economy. The canned food industry was born. Landon stood before his leaders, his gaze set on the future. He was building more than just a city. He was crafting a legacy. From the soaring clock tower to the grand museums, Baymard was destined to lead Hertfilia into a new dawn. The story begins in the dark, tense shadows of power. Nopline, a man blinded by his own arrogance and his sister's ambition, is confronted by his servant with the grim remnants of their rivals. This gruesome display marks the beginning of the chaos that follows as they prepare for a rise to power that leaves no room for mercy or moral decay. At the royal palace in Arcadina, intrigue runs deep. Connor, believing his mother's grand plans are finally reaching their fruition after 12 long years, exudes pride. He is the mother's shining star, ready to seize destiny, unaware of the volatile and dangerous web of secrets that surrounds their family. James stands in a courtyard, a bitter young man who has learned the harsh reality of palace life. To win, one must shed all sentimentality. When his mother approaches with lingering affection, he rejects her with sharp words, viewing her weakness as a liability that threatens his cold, calculating path to success. The capital is alive with festivity, forced into a hollow celebration for the king's 45th birthday. Alec, the tyrant at the center of this storm, basks in the sycophantic praise of his subjects, oblivious to the fact that his kingdom is a powder keg waiting for a spark to ignite the flames of revolution. Even in the sanctuary of the palace, there is no peace. The royal women, submerged in a bath of milk and lavender, descend into a vicious catfight, their vanity and jealousy overriding any sense of decorum. It is a spectacle of petty hatred, a foreshadowing of the final reckoning to come. As the capital prepares for the main event, the chess pieces are moving. Illy, poised and cautious, enters the city with a group of aides, his eyes scanning for any sign of betrayal. He walks into the lion's den, confident that his disguise will keep his true intentions hidden from his father's prying eyes. The grand hall is a theater of social posturing. Nobles scramble for favor and status, while the royal children watch each other with daggers in their eyes. Carrie tries to conceal her shame from a recent fight, but the air is thick with tension as everyone prepares for the king's grand entrance. The ceremony takes a startling turn when Duke Winchester presents a gift that defies belief, a golden watch from the mysterious empire of Baymard. Alec, a man who has ruled with fear, is captivated by the tiny, ticking miracle, not realizing that this object heralds the rise of his cast-off son, Landon Barn. The revelation hits the hall like a lightning bolt. Landon Barn, the illegitimate son once denounced and discarded as a failure, is the architect of a new, advanced empire. Laughter quickly dies, replaced by a chilling silence as the truth of Landon's hidden genius begins to dawn on those who bullied him. Alec's fury knows no bounds. The realization that his son played him like a fool for years turns his world upside down. He demands answers from those who taught Landon, lashing out in a desperate attempt to regain his dignity, while the entire room watches his performative remorse with hidden contempt. In the cold shadows of the palace, the princes prepare for their final strike. James, consumed by the need to prove he is not a weakling, plots to kill his father. He views this parricide not just as a path to the throne, but as the only way to escape the shadow of the brother he once despised. While James readies his sword, Illy orchestrates his own complex game. He charms a gullible noblewoman, using her as a pawn to secure his position before he slips away into the night. His plan is calculated and precise, a sharp contrast to the reckless aggression of his brother James. The moment of truth arrives on the dark road. James steps out of the shadows, ready to commit his ultimate sin, but he finds his father unmoved and prepared. The arrogance of the son meets the ruthless, long-honed survival instincts of the tyrant in a confrontation that will change everything. The battle is short and savage. Alec, showing no mercy for his offspring, brutally humbles James before ending his life. As James slips away, his final thoughts are not of his failed ambitions, but of his mother, a moment of profound and tragic clarity as the heir of the Hertfilian line falls. In the darkness, a mother's heart is shattered. Arcadina is held back, forced to watch the cold, systematic disposal of her only son. Her grief curdles into a singular, burning purpose: vengeance against the husband who discarded her children like waste. The palace will soon learn the true meaning of a woman scorned. While the capital burns with political violence, the empire of Baymard thrives in the sunlight. Landon stands before his greatest achievement yet, a fleet of metallic cruisers that will change the world. He prepares for the arrival of new soldiers, unaware that the Game of Thrones is about to reach his own doorstep. Penelope Thalard arrives in Baymard, expecting a simple visit, but she finds a world that defies her understanding. The sheer scale and brilliance of the cruisers leave the war-hardened woman breathless. For the first time in her life, she feels a sense of awe that challenges everything she thought she knew. The audience with the King of Baymard begins. Penelope, despite her initial skepticism, is humbled by the environment Landon has created. There is no trace of the filth or stench found in other palaces, only efficiency, light, and purpose. It is a meeting that promises to bridge the gap between two empires. The formal meeting turns into an unexpected test of skill. Penelope, wanting to see if the rumors about Landon's power are true, challenges him to a bout. She discovers that he is not just a master of industry, but a warrior who moves with a precision she has never encountered before. Defeat does not anger Penelope, it earns her respect. The fight solidifies a new understanding between them, one forged not just in diplomacy, but in mutual recognition of strength. Landon calls her sister-in-law, a small gesture that marks the beginning of a powerful alliance against the old, decaying world. The reality of training hits the Coronian soldiers like a hammer. The ease of their old lives is stripped away, replaced by the relentless, organized discipline of the Baymardian barracks. For men accustomed to slack, the transition is a shock, and every second lost is a lesson paid for in pain. Discipline is the bedrock of Baymard's power, and it is taught through the harshest of teachers. When the soldiers stumble, the officers are there to remind them that fear is not an excuse. It is a weakness to be overcome. The barracks become a furnace, forging weak men into soldiers worthy of their name. For Penelope, the training is not a punishment, but a revelation. She sees the potential in her people to be more, to reach standards she once thought impossible. She embraces the rigor, pushing herself harder than any of her men, leading by example as the dawn of a new era approaches. Landon watches his new students with satisfaction. He knows the road ahead is perilous, but with every drill, every class, and every shared hardship, he is building a force capable of standing against the tyrants of old. The first step has been taken, and the world will never be the same again. But shadows still loom on the horizon. Miles away, conspirators gather, nursing their grievances and pooling their resources for an assault on Baymard. They see the prosperity and progress of this land not as a gift, but as a prize to be stolen, completely unaware of the iron will that awaits them. The conspiracy grows, fueled by barrels of volatile snow powder and the arrogance of men who believe they can crush progress with force. They march toward their own destruction, blinded by greed and a failure to recognize that they are not invading a city, but challenging the future itself. The stage is set. In the capital, a king mourns his dead son and plots his next move. In Baymard, a young leader builds his army and his legacy. The path forward is paved with both innovation and inevitable conflict, as the two worlds prepare to collide in a final, decisive war. Baymard stands as a beacon of order and prosperity in a land of chaos. From the clean streets to the advanced technology, every detail reflects a vision of a better life. The people believe in their king, and their faith is the strongest shield against the encroaching darkness of those who wish to burn it all. The soldiers, once aimless and divided, have begun to move as one. Penelope leads them with newfound intensity, turning them into a cohesive unit that understands the value of their cause. The transformation is profound, and they are now ready to face whatever threats come from the outside world. The Bay-Coronian transportation route is a symbol of Landon's ambition. These ships will carry not just goods, but the ideas and ideals of a new world, spreading the influence of Baymard across the continent. It is a bold leap, one that demands courage, and Landon Barn is more than prepared for the task. As the curtain falls on this chapter, the world stands on the brink of change. The old powers rot from within, consumed by their own decadence, while Baymard grows stronger every day. The revolution has begun, and the story of Landon Barn is only just starting to unfold, destined to rewrite history forever. Landon Barn, once a modern man of Earth, now stands as the absolute monarch of the rising empire of Baymard. Having successfully transmigrated into this world, he has systematically elevated his people through advanced science and technology. As his system pings with the completion of major medical and developmental missions, he prepares for the next phase of his grand design. With new rewards unlocked, the industrial heart of Baymard begins to beat faster. Landon presents blueprints for mass-producing Earth's classic snacks, Pringles, Doritos, and protein bars. The engineers are captivated, their eyes hungry for the new manufacturing techniques that will soon define the Empire's dietary shift. The system abruptly interrupts his plans. A new, ominous mission takes shape. A fanatical religious sect known as the Temple of Adonis is encroaching on Arcadina. These are no ordinary zealots. They represent a dark force that threatens the peace Landon has worked so tirelessly to build. Far away from the comfort of Baymard, the ambitious martyr and the arrogant Lord Sanders lead an army of 15,000 men. They march with the hubris of conquerors, oblivious to the fact that they are stepping into a trap set by a man who wields power far beyond their comprehension. The scouts report the approaching host. Within Baymard, the alarms blare, calling every soldier to their station. Unlike the traditional armies of this continent, Baymard's forces do not draw swords, they prepare tools of modern, explosive destruction. The silence of the morning is shattered. A thunderous roar fills the air as Baymard's artillery speaks for the first time. The arrogance of the invaders is erased in a heartbeat, replaced by the sheer, overwhelming power of modern ballistic technology. Victory is swiftly attained, yet for Landon, the work never ceases. The system delivers a new ultimatum. He must strike down the surviving leaders and secure the city of Riverdale by midnight. His role as the architect of this world's future is a heavy burden, one that permits no hesitation. Under the cloak of darkness, the surgical strike begins. Landon infiltrates the city lord's estate with lethal efficiency. Martyr, once a confident commander, finds himself cornered, his pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears as the inevitable conclusion draws near. One by one, the threats to the new order are neutralized. As Landon secures Riverdale, the geopolitical landscape shifts. The ghostly prince and other rivals begin their convergence on Baymard, their intentions masked by the guise of a family reunion, but Landon remains vigilant. Commerce begins to mirror the military expansion. The new transport ships serve as symbols of Baymard's burgeoning influence, drawing common folk and aspirants from across the empires. A new era is dawning, and for the youth of the continent, Baymard is the promised land of opportunity. Yet even as the empire thrives, the shadows grow longer. Reports confirm the approach of the Temple of Adonis. Landon mobilizes his finest, the Marines and the Navy. He prepares for a naval confrontation, ready to test the true steel of his battleships against the antiquated wooden fleets of the fanatics. The sails are dropped, the engines rumble to life, and the fleet departs. Landon stands at the bow, a king with the weight of destiny on his shoulders. The battle for the seas is about to begin, and with it, the survival of the vision he has sown into this land. In the empire of Baymard, the king, Landon Barn, has embarked on a covert mission. A man who crossed the threshold of life and death, leaving his former world for this one, he has transformed a struggling land into an industrial powerhouse. Unbeknownst to his people, he has left for the coast to confront the Temple of Adonis, setting the stage for a new era of naval warfare. While their king travels the seas, life in Baymard continues at a breakneck pace. It is the first day of summer, and the academy gates are open for the entrance examinations. George Kramer, a young man who fled Corona to seek a better life, stands amidst the crowd, his heart racing with the weight of his family's future on his shoulders. Amidst the sea of strangers, George spots his unconventional friend, Frederick Mosey. Their bond, forged in the fires of earlier rejections, provides a sliver of comfort in the high-pressure environment of Baymard's elite culinary and bartending academy. The bells ring, signaling the start of the challenge. The instructors, dressed in pristine professional gear, outline the grueling path ahead, 9 examinations over 5 days. Only the best will rise to become the culinary masters of the continent. George is assigned to Group 32. The task is simple in theory. Prepare a dish involving potatoes, but the pressure is immense. He meticulously selects his raw materials, testing the quality of each ingredient with the precision of an artisan. He picks up a knife, feeling its weight and balance. With every rhythmic thud on the chopping board, George pours his hopes into the preparation. Though his technique is still raw, he strives for the uniformity he has studied so tirelessly. The judges roam the floor like hawks, their eyes scanning for mistakes. They look for presentation, technique, hygiene, and execution. George watches them with trepidation, praying he hasn't faltered under the immense scrutiny. The critique is brutal. One judge points out a slight burning smell he failed to notice while cooking. For a moment, George feels his world collapsing, his eyes misty with the fear of failure and the weight of his family's expectations. But then the tide turns. Despite his technique flaws, his dish's texture and taste earn him a passing grade. George Kramer has cleared the first hurdle. The road ahead is long, but he has taken his first step. Elated, George rushes home to share his success, only to find his sister locked away in her room. She has failed her Law Academy examination. The joyous atmosphere of Baymard feels worlds away from the silence of their apartment. George breaks into her room, offering comfort. He learns the difference between their paths. His academy tests for culinary precision, while the Law Academy demands an understanding of justice, a concept she struggled to grasp today. While dreams are tested in Baymard, far out on the Arcadina coast, the air is thick with heat and tension. A fleet of 46 ships sails in formation, oblivious to the metal monstrosity rapidly closing in on them. The scouts, fried by the relentless sun, struggle to make sense of what they see. A flying whale? A metal monster? They scramble to ready their primitive defenses, their hands shaking as they prepare to face the unknown. On board the battleship, Landon and his men are oblivious to the enemy's terror. Thanks to advanced cooling technology, they remain comfortable, watching the enemy fleet like prey in a trap. The order is given. The battleship's weapons awaken, firing with surgical precision. The enemy fleet, arranged in a rigid square, suddenly finds itself under fire from all sides, the ocean erupting into a wall of flame. Panic erupts among the Arcadina fleet. Their wooden hulls, built for traditional combat, are no match for the modern explosives. The sea turns into a graveyard of fire and splinters. Landon's battleship circles the wreckage, a predator demonstrating total dominance. The battle is short, brutal, and one-sided, effectively ending the threat before it could even begin. Back at home, the Empire of Yawden is in the grip of Baymard fever. Citizens clamor for canned goods, lipsticks, and diapers, their lives forever changed by the influx of advanced products. In the royal palace, Sirius MacLean reads reports about the bastard prince who has turned the continent upside down. Intrigued by Landon's innovations, he decides it is time to see Baymard for himself, in secret. With the threat at sea neutralized, Landon turns his attention to Riverdale City. He travels by jeep, inspecting the progress of the new tarred roads that serve as arteries for his growing influence. The citizens of Riverdale no longer fear their old lords. They have found a new leader in Landon. They greet his caravan with cheers, recognizing him as a godlike figure who brought them prosperity and hope. In his office, Landon reviews the growth of Riverdale. The death rate is falling, the standard of living is rising, and the city is transforming. He is building a better world, one region at a time. Back in Baymard, the system delivers a long-awaited notification. The ghostly prince has arrived. Landon's mission enters its critical phase. He must find this mysterious figure to complete his task. In a luxury hotel, William, the long-lost ghostly prince, gazes upon Baymard. The city is a revelation of light, comfort, and power. He is both awestruck and cautious, plotting his next move with his loyal men. Amidst the political maneuvering, William encounters Paula, a strong and beautiful guard. Her grace and strength ignite feelings he has never experienced, adding a layer of personal complexity to his arrival. The Empire gathers for the royal wedding. It is a day of joy and celebration, a moment of peace and happiness that briefly overshadows the brewing political storm. The Queen Mother is a vision of modern elegance in a gown that redefines the standards of the Empire. The crowd is mesmerized, witnessing the start of a beautiful union. The wedding concludes and Landon finally meets the visitor in the Crimson Garden. The system pings, this is the ghostly prince. They embrace as long-lost brothers, their shared past creating a foundation of trust. Days later, the true antagonist arrives. Landon Barn, king of Arcadina, marches toward Baymard with his sons and guards. His heart is filled with rage, greed, and a burning desire for revenge. At the land port, Alec's pride is shattered. He is treated not as a king, but as a common visitor. The humiliation of being forced to hand over his weapons sparks a violent outburst. Alec orders his men to attack, but the guards are ready. With a flash of electric fire, the Arcadinian elite are paralyzed, collapsing like puppets with cut strings. The humiliation is absolute. The tyrant king is cast outside the gates, stripped of his dignity. The peasants look on, no longer in fear, but with a newfound contempt for the man who once ruled them with an iron fist. William and his men watch the chaos from a distance, the shock of the taser-based defense settling in. They realize that Baymard's power lies not in chivalry, but in a terrifying, unseen mastery over nature. With the annoying guests temporarily sidelined, Landon returns to his work. He gathers his overseers to discuss the next grand project, hot air balloons. The sky, too, shall belong to Baymard. Landon aims to turn the empire into an attraction, with sky tours that offer breathtaking views of the districts. Safety is paramount, and only the most skilled and courageous will be allowed to master the clouds. He gazes at the horizon, his ambitions reaching ever higher. The ghost prince is here, the enemy is humiliated, and the skies are next. Landon Barn continues his steady march to reshape the world. Every day is a struggle, every triumph a step forward. Landon knows the path is narrow, but his resolve is unbreakable. He is the master of this land, and his legacy is being written in iron and light. As the sun sets over Baymard, the city glows with promise. The people work, love, and dream, living in a golden age born from a stranger's vision. The future is bright, and the king is watching over it all. The stage is set. 2 cousins, 2 kings, and a destiny that binds them. The dance of power has only just begun, and the world of hurt philia will never be the same again. Landon Barn, once a man of earth and now the visionary king of Baymard, leads a critical meeting. He has transmigrated into this world, determined to uplift his people through science and innovation, and today they discuss the assembly of the very first hot air balloons. Overseer Sophia details the challenges of stitching the massive envelope from specialized fabrics. Despite her efforts, only a small fraction passed the rigorous quality control, yet Landon remains pleased with the progress. The alchemy industry, led by Wiggins, has successfully produced gas tanks and essential materials, providing the fuel required to lift the gargantuan balloons into the sky. Tim's team has finalized the safety systems and the baskets, having put them through brutal impact testing to ensure the safety of the citizens who will soon be the first to taste flight. The anticipation in Baymard reaches a fever pitch as the overseers and workers converge at the back of the building to assemble the behemoth vessel. History is in the making. The massive red balloon, over 26 meters long, begins to take shape against the sky, dwarfing the surrounding office buildings. A race erupts as Landon calls for volunteers. Workers run like Olympic sprinters, scrambling over stairs and across the lawn, desperate for the chance to be among the legendary first to fly. Kathy, having come to the industry on her break, finds herself chosen by chance. She is exhilarated, unaware that she is stepping into a moment that will define the future of the entire world. Landon addresses the 7 selected individuals. Today, on August 6, 1026, he declares that humanity will finally claim the sky. Parachutes and safety measures are explained with utmost gravity. The burners roar, and the basket trembles before leaving the ground. The spectators watch in utter disbelief as the massive object rises into the air, defying gravity itself. The overseers discuss the physics of heat and air molecules, turning the balloon ride into a flying lecture. Below, the city of Baymard stares upward, confusion turning into pure shock. Landon announces the start of the first sky tour. The city beneath them is filled with wonder and fear, as some even mistake the feat for an enemy invasion until the news reports clarify the truth. Within the Kimberly Hotel, Alec Barn burns with envy and hatred. Hearing of Landon's success, his jealousy boils over, realizing how much he squandered by casting his son away. Alec, Connor, and Carrie plot to infiltrate the forbidden lower region of Baymard. Their greed knows no bounds, and they are willing to risk everything to uncover Landon's secrets. A letter of audience arrives. Alec and his children are granted a meeting with Landon. They see it as the perfect opportunity to sow chaos and reclaim the glory they feel is rightfully theirs. Night descends on the lower region. Security is absolute. Landon has implemented strict checks, buses, and light patterns that turn the perimeter into a nightmare for any unauthorized intruder. 7 masked infiltrators crawl through the darkness like lizards. They are trapped in a deadly dance, forced to contort their bodies to stay hidden from the sweeping, randomized searchlights. Desperation takes hold as they attempt to scale the fence. Unaware of the hidden electrified barriers, they reach out, only to be struck by a numbing, painful current that sends them tumbling down. The sirens shriek, cutting through the night. The intruders are caught in a pincer movement as Landon's elite security dogs, trained for agility and precision, descend upon them like fur-covered shadows. The hunt is short and brutal. The men are no match for the trained beasts. Within 15 minutes, the entire sabotage mission ends in complete failure, and the captives are hauled away. By morning, the news is everywhere. The citizens of Baymard listen in awe to the report of the failed infiltration. Confidence in their security force surges as the failed spies are thrown into holding cells. Landon and his family prepare for the visit to the hospital, but Mother Kim remains lost in thought. The meeting with Alec weighs heavy on her heart, though she is determined to stand tall. Alec and his kin arrive at the palace. The sheer scale and luxury of the royal estate intimidate and infuriate them simultaneously. They have come to negotiate, but their greed is clearly visible. The meeting begins. Alec attempts to manipulate the atmosphere with fake affection, but Landon remains icy, dismissing the charade. The tension in the grand audience hall is palpable. The facade collapses. Alec demands that Landon hand over Baymard, threatening war. He exposes his true self, believing his intimidation will force his son to submit, but he is dead wrong. Landon refuses to be cowed. He coolly dismisses Alec's threats, informing him that the captured spies will face a public court trial, and any ransom will be a matter of formal state business. Back at the police headquarters, the prisoners pace their cells. They are gripped by the fear of the unknown, left in silence by their captors, wondering if their boss will truly save them. The lawyer, Mr. McLaren, begins the psychological dismantling of the prisoners. He offers them a path to reduce their sentences in exchange for the name of their employer, setting the stage for betrayal. Detective Morris and his team meticulously collect evidence from the hotel room where the spies had stayed. Every strand of hair and footprint is catalogued, strengthening Baymard's legal case against the infiltrators. The day of the trial arrives. The courtroom is packed with onlookers eager to see justice served. As Judge Bowman strikes his gavel, the legal battle for the spy's fate begins, marking a new chapter in the history of Baymard. The trial of the 7 conspirators became a live spectacle. Under intense pressure, Ceres desperately tried to hide his connection to Alec Barn, fearing the repercussions more than the law. Lawyer Vincent masterfully dismantled the lies, presenting physical evidence that placed an unknown visitor at the crime scene, effectively cornering Ceres. The onlookers and the gathered leaders were stunned by the methodical genius of the Baymardian legal system, realizing that no crime could remain hidden forever. The trial concluded with a 2-year sentence for the conspirators. Alec Barn showed no remorse, silently planning his revenge against his own son as he departed. Just as the trial ended, Landon Barn received a new series of system missions. He was tasked with saving a poisoned king and securing the future of the Empire of Tariq. Landon Barn questioned the nature of his soul pool, learning from the system that his path forward was inextricably linked to his ability to perform these heaven-sent tasks. Far away, the seer Princess Lucia of Zalipnia entered a deep trance. Guided by the heavens, she painted a map and revealed the name of their fated savior, Landon Barn. Princess Lucia emerged from her vision to a desperate royal family. She spoke of the savior from the east, initiating a journey that would change their empire's fate forever. Back in Baymard, Landon Barn initiated his newest project, the landline telephone system, tasking Tim Mayers with managing the construction and the immense logistics involved. Entrusted with independence, Tim Mayers and his team worked tirelessly to finalize the budget, feeling the weight of the king's high expectations on their shoulders. The auditorium buzzed with potential as Landon Barn began the training sessions for the new DMC phone company, preparing a new generation of engineers for the technological leap. Landon Barn unveiled the landline's internal mechanisms, demonstrating how wires and diaphragms would revolutionize communication across the empire. Meanwhile, the antagonists gathered in a hidden forest base. The loyal followers of Slytherin Cord rode through the night, eager and terrified to finally meet their master. Slytherin Cord proved to be a ruthless master, executing his own men for the slightest sign of curiosity, establishing a reign of absolute fear within his estate. Slytherin Cord interrogated his captive, Mona Ferris Barn, unaware of her true identity. He sought to use her as a tool to draw out the ghostly prince. In Baymard, Lucy carefully managed the arrival of new, dangerous prisoners, ensuring the high-tech prison facilities were prepared for the likes of Mad Rigo and other monsters. As Landon Barn and his elite squad ascended toward the Empire of Tariq, the freed slaves below watched in awe, convinced they were witnessing the descent of gods. Under the cover of night, Landon Barn successfully infiltrated the palace grounds, disguised as guards, preparing to execute the daring rescue of King Michael Parsley. Diversionary tactics ignited the palace perimeter. Chaos erupted as explosions rocked the compound, masking the movements of the rescuers hidden within the palace walls. Camara fled through the hallways in a state of terror, desperate to secure her son Lecter while the palace infrastructure crumbled under unseen attacks. The signal was lit. Red flares illuminated the smoky sky, signaling the aerial unit to shift their support while the ground team closed in on the king's chambers. With lethal precision, the ground squad neutralized the elite guards protecting the south wing, clearing the path to King Michael Parsley's royal bedroom chamber. The final breach was executed. Landon Barn and his team stormed the royal chamber, neutralizing the guards before they could even draw their swords. The guards collapsed in confusion and terror, witnessing what they believed to be black magic, as their numbers were decimated in seconds. Victory was within reach. The chamber was breached, and Landon Barn had finally reached the captive monarch, ready to turn the tides of Tariq's future. As the dust settled, Landon Barn stood before the frail monarch, marking the commencement of the rescue operation that would soon reshape the entire political landscape. With the target secured and the palace in utter chaos, the extraction phase of the mission began, signaling the beginning of the end for Camara's puppet rule. The mission was a success. Landon Barn disappeared into the night with the king, leaving the Empire of Tariq in shock, unaware that their world had just been irrevocably changed. In the crumbling heart of the palace, the young leader of Baymard, Landon Barn, finds the man he traveled across lands to rescue, the king of Tariq, Mitchell, reduced to a mere shell of his former self by years of slow poisoning. Despite hovering on the edge of death, the king's spirit refuses to break. He demands to know why this young intruder has dared to breach his sanctuary, his voice cold and commanding even in his dying moments. Landon dismisses the king's hostility with a reckless, playful grin. He offers no grand explanation, only claiming that he is here simply because he likes the king, leaving the guards baffled and the king speechless. The king, realizing this strange young man might be his only salvation, abandons his pride. He pleads with Landon to save his remaining family locked in the dungeon, a regret that has haunted his lonely, poisoned days. Landon's demeanor shifts instantly from playful to professional. With precision, he commands his men to strip the fallen guards, clothing the frail king in a simple disguise to facilitate their daring escape. The team moves like ghosts through the south wing hallways. Every step is calculated, their mission hanging by a thread as they transition toward the west wing, desperate to reach the secret dungeons before the palace guards strike back. Deep within the bowels of the castle, the air is stagnant. Landon arrives at the dungeon, finding the queen and her children chained, their eyes wide with fear and survival, sensing the approach of danger. Jasmine, having trained herself to be the shield for her children, prepares to fight whatever threat comes through the door. She assumes it is another guard, refusing to yield until she realizes the intent of these mysterious strangers. Landon attempts to calm the queen, informing her that the king has sent them. Jasmine, having been told for years that the king is dying, struggles to reconcile these words with her deep-seated mistrust of the palace forces. With a quick, precise shot, the shackles holding the queen fall away. Jasmine is stunned by the magical efficiency of these men, her physical freedom restored in a heartbeat, fueling her sudden glimmer of hope. There is no time for questions. The soldiers hoist the queen and the children onto their backs, sprinting through the dungeon tunnels, reuniting the fractured family as they race toward the surface and their waiting king. As they make their escape, they are confronted by the devil herself, Camara. She enters the parlor with her guards, only to find the scene of carnage and the realization that her captives have slipped through her fingers. Camara orders her men to stop them, but Landon does not engage in a prolonged fight. He prioritizes speed and momentum, charging his team straight through the guard lines as the mission turns into a desperate race against time. Bursting out of the mansion, the team transitions from a sprint to a tactical walk to evade notice. They reach the stables at the edge of the city, their horses waiting like beacons of freedom in the night. They ride like the wind, disappearing into the cover of the forest. The guards at the city gates are left clutching their arms, wounded by unseen weapons, bewildered by the mystical forces that just dismantled their authority. Arriving at the hidden hideout, the rescued family is greeted by the sight of giant balloons swaying in the night air. Their confusion turns to awe as they witness the strange technology of their saviors. The transition to the air is meticulous. Landon ensures the family is settled into their stalls, providing blankets and pillows. The family, still in shock, watches as the impossible becomes their new reality. With a roar of fire, the balloons rise, lifting the family above the world they once knew. They watch the palace grow smaller, a tiny speck of darkness against the vast, illuminated horizon of their escape. High in the air, the terror of the dungeon begins to fade. The children discover the simple wonders of their saviors, snacks and clean drinks that taste like magic to their starving bodies, grounding them in this new, strange safety. Landon maintains strict discipline. With his megaphone, he coordinates the journey, ensuring the safety of every guest, his leadership acting as a steady pulse in the quiet, expansive darkness of the sky. Miles away, the morning brings only rage for Camara. She lashes out at her failure of a guard force, her vanity bruised, her plans for the crown currently smoldering in the wake of an enemy she cannot even comprehend. After days of travel, the land comes into view. Landon oversees the transfer of his rescued charges onto a majestic naval vessel, their journey toward a new life in Baymard finally underway. Inside the ship's luxury quarters, the children are dazed. Kriya stares into a clear, beautiful mirror, seeing the reflection of a life she never imagined possible, her awe deepening her bond with her handsome, heroic savior. Moments of lightness break the tension. Landon interacts with the little girl, his wink turning her shy, and the group finds joy in the simple human connections that have been denied to them for so long. Mitchell stands alone on the balcony watching the waves. His body is still recovering, but his mind is burning with the fires of revenge. Camara will pay for her treachery, and he will be the victor when the winds turn. The voyage continues, the ship cutting through the dawn. They are leaving the darkness of the past behind, sailing toward the unknown shores of Baymard, where the next chapter of their lives and their revolution awaits. The forest was a suffocating maze of humidity and strange, predatory sounds. Landon Barn, the visionary king of Baymard, found himself deep within the wilderness, his senses pushed to their absolute limits as he led his men into the unknown. Suspicion clawed at the air. The sounds echoing through the trees were not natural. They were deliberate, drawing them toward a dark, cavernous lair. Landon knew they were being led into a trap, but he refused to back down. Suddenly, the forest opened up into a clearing, and the nightmare revealed itself. Dozens of musins, pink, snake-like reptiles with 4 legs, emerged from the shadows, their cold, reptilian eyes locked onto their prey. The battle erupted in a blur of gunfire and screeching hisses. Lucius moved with practiced grace, his guns barking rhythmically as he aimed for the deadly creatures, refusing to let his guard slip for a single heartbeat. Landon split his forces, managing the chaos with a general's precision. Despite being vastly outnumbered, his soldiers held their ground, their confidence bolstered by their king's unshakable presence on the front lines. Amusin spat a cloud of paralyzing pink fluid. Lucius threw himself into a roll, narrowly avoiding the lethal mist. Had it touched him, he would have been at the mercy of these beasts for hours. The clearing fell silent, the 30 beasts defeated, but the war wasn't over. Landon dismissed his soldiers' protests, insisting he alone navigate the dark tunnel to rescue the captives still trapped deep within the Musin lair. The cave was a foul-smelling hellhole, dripping with moisture and decay. With his night vision goggles active, Landon crept through the shadows, moving like a ghost through the labyrinthine tunnels of the enemy nest. To survive the total darkness and treacherous terrain, Landon tapped into his system for an upgrade. He traded points for night-illuminating eyes, turning the pitch-black abyss into a landscape as bright as midday. Landon became a whirlwind of destruction. He danced through the nest, his gunfire finding its mark with mechanical precision, clearing the path forward as he descended into the heart of the beast's territory. He reached the inner sanctum. Here the horrors were laid bare, stacks of human remains and a clutch of unhatched eggs. 3 tiny, hungry baby Musins feasted nearby, monsters, even in their infancy. As the final battle in the nest concluded, the sound of reinforcements echoed through the tunnels. His men had arrived, their faces etched with shock and awe at the carnage left in his wake. Landon wasted no time, coordinating the rescue of nearly 100 survivors. The cave was then rigged with explosives, collapsing the Musin lair into rubble, a final, permanent victory for Baymard. Far away in Yadin, the bitter Queen Ivy seethed in exile. Having lost her status and influence to the new King Sirius, her hatred for the royal family had festered into a dangerous, dark obsession. The shadows provided a glimmer of hope. A message arrived, confirming the location of the former Queen Winnie and her children in Baymard. Ivy's revenge had finally found a target. Back in the booming capital of Baymard, life flourished. Young Kriya and her best friend Rebecca were buzzing with energy, heading to the newly inaugurated National Museum for a grand educational tour. Watching her children, Queen Jasmine marveled at the change. Once an idle royal, she was now a productive member of the Ministry of Finance, her eyes opened by the wonders of the empire Landon had built. The National Museum stood as a testament to progress, housing centuries of civilization and lost history. For the students, it was more than a building. It was a glimpse into the vastness of the world. Their guide, Gale, mesmerized them with tales of extinct titans that ruled Hertphilia long before humans. As the children listened, they felt both terrified and lucky, humbled by the sheer scale of ancient evolution. Meanwhile, the sea told a different story. The Baymard Navy, led by Lieutenant Felix, intercepted a fleet of slave traders. The massive, towering warship loomed over the enemy, a metal giant on the waves. The enemy ships defied the order to surrender, their arrogance blinding them to the power they faced. Lieutenant Felix didn't hesitate. He signaled his snipers, initiating the mission, Free Bird. Ian and his squad descended via deck bridges, breaching the enemy vessel like a storm. They moved through the halls with lethal efficiency, while the enemy leadership collapsed into a pathetic, cowardly panic. The ship's captain attempted to hide, leaving his men to die in the hallway. Ian's squad crushed the resistance, employing masterful combat techniques until the cowardly deserter was finally brought to his knees. In the bowels of the ship, they discovered the captives, haggard, starving, and broken. With the guards neutralized, Ian offered them a choice: return to their homes or find a new beginning in Baymard. Elsewhere, Baron Kane's hubris consumed him. After his failed ambush on Barn, he turned his wrath upon his own men, subjecting them to a gruesome end for their perceived incompetence. Back home, the world record event captured the city's heart. Danver Wallace, a humble farmer, pushed his body to the limit in the hand jump category, his display of sheer determination inspiring the cheering crowd. Landon's final mission awaited in Ngum City, a place long ravaged by illness and despair. He stepped into the misery with a clear goal: to sanitize, heal, and bring light to the forgotten, sick citizens of Corona. In a quarantined, forgotten city where hope has withered for years, the protagonist, Landon Barn, arrives. A man who once existed in another world, now the leader of the Baymard Empire. As he embarks on a mission to eradicate the deadly Shinjep plague, the citizens, including young Minka, live in filth and fear, unaware that their salvation has just arrived. Minka, a girl born into a life of squalor, finds beauty in the simple hope of survival. As winter approaches, her family works to reinforce their meager shelter, unaware that a royal announcement is about to fracture the cycle of their stagnant, miserable existence. The silence of 9 long years is broken by a thunderous call. Citizens are summoned to the city lord's mansion, sparking a firestorm of terrified rumors and wild theories about impending death, curses, and mysterious foreign visitors. Landon Barn, the majestic king from Baymard, commands the stage. His presence alone begins to shift the atmosphere, as he promises a fight against the Shinjep plague that has plagued them for centuries. The transformation begins with basic hygiene. Volunteers like Minka are baffled by the sight of pristine paper and modern tools, symbols of the wealth and knowledge these visitors bring to the dying city. Landon sifts through the data, filtering truth from folklore. He is not just treating the sick, he is training his doctors to think, to hypothesize, and to dismantle the roots of the disease through rigorous scientific research. The great cleanup of Ngum City ensues. Garbage is purged by fire, and the pervasive stench of rot begins to lift, replaced by the faint hope of a future where health is a right, not a luxury. While Landon battles plague, his Lieutenant Barry arrives in the Coronian capital. The soldiers of Baymard are treated like legendary heroes, their presence turning a quiet morning into a chaotic, joyous celebration. The reunion is bittersweet and filled with military respect. Queen Penelope and her allies welcome Barry, their eyes shining with reverence for the rigorous discipline fostered in Baymard. The mission shifts toward the shadows of society. Barry, Penelope, and the delegation head to the brutal heart of the Empire's prison, a place where dangerous criminals await their final departure to Baymard. The horror of the prison is laid bare. Guards recount how monsters like Mad Rigo have turned simple objects into weapons, their words painting a grim picture of the insanity that resides behind the iron bars. The confrontation with Mr. Blade is lightning fast. A legendary assassin is caught mid-escape, his attempt to murder a guard thwarted by the sheer, precise skill of the Baymardian soldiers. Even in defeat, the assassin finds a twisted joy in his opponent's strength. He marks Barry as a target for his sick, artistic obsessions, but the Baymardians are unmoved, their only focus on the efficient transport of the prisoners. The logistical nightmare of transport is executed with ruthless efficiency. Prisoners are secured, sedated, and prepared for the journey under the watchful eyes of the Baymardian squad. A final surprise awaits. Adrian hands over 3 bound captives, the unruly princes, with a sly smile. Barry can only sigh, feeling the weight of the headache this special delivery will surely cause his king. Meanwhile, in the sanctuary of Baymard, newcomers like Muriel begin their transition. Freed from the chains of brutal servitude, they stand on the precipice of a new life, where their labor is valued and their rights are protected. The morning rush at the food industry is a testament to the industrial revolution Landon has sparked. Workers gather in anticipation, their lives irreversibly altered by the promise of fair wages and systematic organization. The production line is a marvel of engineering. From the raw grain to the final boxed cereal, the precision of the machines leaves the workers speechless, realizing they are witnessing the birth of a new era. The chaos of the marketplace is their true initiation. Fighting for a box of cereal is no longer just a struggle for survival, but a rite of passage into the vibrant, competitive, and truly shameless spirit of Baymardians. In the shadows of Arcadina, conspiracies thicken. William welcomes the return of the infamous Mr. Death, a man whose mere name strikes terror into the hearts of nobles, a silent blade in William's war for vengeance. Illy, caught in his own web of ambition, finds himself losing control over the volatile Slytherin court. As his subordinate slips further into madness, Illy plots to use him as a pawn in his game against the ghostly prince. Back at Ngum City, the reality of the diplomatic kidnapping settles in. The 3 princes, now gagged and indignant, are delivered to Landon like unruly cargo, their arrogance failing to hide the truth of their defeat. The return to Baymard is met with joy. The mission is a success, but the work is far from over. The prisoners are processed into the modern prison system, and the princes are prepared for a life-changing military intervention. In the hospital, Landon finds a transformed ally. King Mitchell, healed and invigorated, signs the historic treaty that brings Tariq into the fold. Two empires down, and the dream of a united continent draws closer. Landon returns to the heart of his empire's growth. Reports on the new communication technologies, television and landlines, fill the room. Innovation is moving at a breakneck pace, and Landon is the architect. Landon envisions his next venture, a resort that turns the cold winter into a playground. From ice hotels to indoor snow parks, he prepares to offer experiences that defy the imagination and define the new Baymard. And in the shadows of the palace, an old predator returns. Landon Barn, presumed to be on the run or dead, strides through the gates. The Game of Thrones is about to get much more deadly. In the heart of the Arcadina capital, King Landon Barn schemes. Still reeling from the sting of Baymard's technological superiority, he demands the royal blacksmith's craft shields against the lightning weapons of his unfilial son, Landon Barn, preparing for a war he believes he can easily win. While her father plots, Princess Carrie Barn is lost in the thrill of a forbidden romance. Hiding from the eyes of spies and stepmothers, she prepares for a secret tryst with Anthony, blinded by love and unaware of the shadows gathering around her. With the excitement of a schoolgirl, Carrie demands the finest luxuries. She ignores the brewing political unrest, obsessing over her appearance for a man she must keep hidden from a kingdom still mourning her sister, Jeanette. The princess leaves her safety behind, traveling through the filth of the capital's poorest districts. Unaware that she is being hunted, she believes she is finally free to embrace her beloved. Stepping into the stench of the tavern, Carrie enters the belly of the beast. The environment is harsh and dangerous, a far cry from the velvet-lined halls of the palace she calls home. The romantic reunion turns into a nightmare. She finds her lover, Anthony, lying motionless with a head injury, the room filled with the metallic tang of fresh blood. A cold, emotionless voice breaks the silence. A masked stranger reveals he is the architect of this trap, leaving the princess paralyzed with a fear that chills her to the bone. Terror consumes her as the steel flashes. With a single, horrific motion, the masked assailant claims his prize, severing her limb and leaving the princess in a world of unimaginable agony and darkness. 8 days later, the princess awakens to a new reality, a life stripped of completeness. Her mother's cries fill the room, but the princess is already lost to a burning, consuming desire for revenge. Far away in Baymard, life is brighter. Landon Barn, a man who transmigrated from our world to this one, wakes to the cheerful chaos of his wards. Today is not just any day, it is the day of the landline launch. The city of Baymard hums with anticipation. Landon leads his entourage to the launch event where the future of communication will be born. The crowd waits, counting down the seconds to a new era. History is made as the ribbon falls. The phone companies are open for business. A new age of connection begins, one that Landon has painstakingly brought to life for his people. The masses flood the building, marveling at the technology that feels like magic. Principal Stiltskin and his family browse the aisles, picking out designs that will soon link their lives together across the city. But even in triumph, the serpent stirs. Landon's smile fades as a guard brings news of a critical security breach at the coastal port. The code is Houston, we have a problem. Treason has struck at the heart of their defense. Someone within the military has leaked critical weapon manufacturing documents. The element of surprise is gone, and the stakes for Baymard's survival have never been higher. Arriving at the coastal port, the investigation begins in secret. They need to find the traitor before the leak does irreversible damage. Every second counts in this hunt for the mole. The suspect claims he was framed by friends in a tavern. But as the interrogation proceeds, the inconsistencies in his story begin to tear his facade apart, revealing a calculating mind at work. The traitor is moved into the shadows, blindfolded and broken. Landon and Lucius begin the real work, peeling back the layers of deception to uncover the masters pulling the strings from afar. The trap is set. Inspector Morgan systematically dismantles the lies of the suspects, pinpointing the inconsistency in their behavior that exposes Hemru for the spy he truly is. Confronted with the physical evidence of his left-handedness, Hemru's confidence cracks. He boasts of his master, Nopline, but he is merely a pawn, and his utility has reached its end. The assembly for the public announcement turns into an execution of justice. In a move that shocks the nation, the two traitors in the military are pinned down as their deception is laid bare for all to see. Landon addresses his people, his words a thunderous warning to all who would dare threaten Baymard's peace. He takes the responsibility of the execution upon himself, a king who protects his domain with blood. The steel flashes and justice is served. Heads fall, sending a message that echoes throughout the empires. Spies flee in terror, and the people of Baymard witness the true weight of the crown. Miles away, Nopline erupts. His plans are crumbling, his ships are missing, and his spies have failed. The realization that Baymard is a fortress far stronger than he imagined begins to sink in. Nopline and Camara weave their new web of deceit, planning to fake the death of the king to secure their hold on power. They are blind to the fact that their path is leading them to their own demise. In a hidden base, the torture continues. Slytherin Cord grows impatient, his cruelty escalating as the nanny refuses to yield. She suffers, but her silence is a weapon of ironclad loyalty. The long wait is over. The perimeter is breached, and the shadows are filled with the approach of those who have finally come to answer the call. The final confrontation is at hand.